And good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn. Who's Griffin and wooing in the background if it's Friday. That was sort of like a Ric Flair woo. Woo! Nah,
woo!
That's a Ric Flair woo. That's how that works.
So that was my first woo was like that?
It was sort of like that, but it didn't extend.
Woo!
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo! Griffin.
Woo!
Yeah, that's more of a Ric Flair woo. That's how you do it. So that's what we had for you. Great to see you. We will see y'all next. Lot to do as we get ready for Ravens Bills on Sunday night. Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with us as he is every Friday. Oh, hello, I didn't suddenly get the hiccups as the show starts. What the hell is that all about?
It's all that wooing. Yeah.
It's the wooing. You're right. That'll do it. Stan's with us every Friday. A lot to do on the program today as we will get you ready for Sunday night. Bo Smolka joins us. We'll go up to Buffalo. Ryan O'Halloran from the Buffalo News. We'll preview the other side of Sunday night's game. Derek Rackley is on the broadcast for Westwood One, and will join us a little bit later on. And before we get out of here today, we'll hear from Jay Feely, who will be on the sidelines for CBS.
So Ryan O'Halloran is going to talk about the losing side.
Well, we certainly hope that's the case, Stan, but I'm not going to say things in absolutes and then be the guy that everybody gets mad at. I thought you said. I don't know who's going to win the game. I think the Ravens are better. I do, genuinely. But I don't know who's going to win the game because
That's why they play the games.
I thought the Chargers were going to beat the Texans last week. Close. Right there.
They tried to, yeah.
I thought Maryland might beat Northwestern. Actually, really didn't. I really didn't. I'm not going to lie about that.
Even if Barnheiser didn't play, it was going to be an uphill.
If Barnheiser didn't play, I would have felt comfortable about it. But yeah,
I don't know about going in, but they probably
Look,
should.
Was he hurt going in?
Yeah, there were.
I don't know.
It was a weird all afternoon. There were like weird reports about Barnheiser. Like,
He looked pretty.
oh
decent
yeah,
to
he
me.
looked quite fine. The line moved a lot in the afternoon. All of a sudden, Maryland was like a 4.5-point favorite. You're like, I guess they really know.
Felt good about my Northwestern 3.5 though. That was,
Oh yeah. You feel good about who you are as a human?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I don't really want to spend too much time on it because obviously it's Ravens, Bills, and other things to discuss.
What was the line on that game last night? 3.5.
I saw at one point in the afternoon it
Yeah,
got up to 4.5.
Wow. Okay.
Maryland was favored, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
I think it closed at 2.5.
Look, you can say all of the same things. You can say it's a really difficult place to play, and you can say whatever you want to say. Kevin Willard has a problem now. And last season, we were all like, okay, you can get a 1-year pass. You bring in Derek Queen, prove that there's something going on. And we know this team is good enough that they're probably going to make the NCAA tournament. But the idea was this team was supposed to be good enough that they could be like a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And this road thing that hangs over now this program is starting to define another coach. The things that were defining for Mark Turgeon were they weren't good in March. They weren't good. They didn't get better as the season went along. You can't define what the issue is with certain coaches. Some of them you can. And right now, the story for Kevin Willard is he's 4-21 on the road in Big Ten play. And I get it. It's tough to win. I understand that. Like, it is tough to win on the road. And so if you were a 500 coach on the road, we'd all say, like, okay, we understand. It's tough to win on the road. But now you can't beat Washington. And you can't beat Northwestern. The games that you've got to be able to win, like you lose on the road at Oregon or Purdue, everybody says, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
They were competitive in both those games. They were right there in both those games. You lose those games, but beat Northwestern and beat Washington. There's no panic. There's it'd be really nice to get over the hump in those games, but you prove that you can battle with those teams. You get on a neutral court, it will probably be different. You can't go this season and it can't be that the only times you ever win on the road is when you're facing a corpse. And there aren't even that many corpses in the Big Ten at this point.
Michigan just lost at Minnesota last night. So
that happened.
Yeah.
That's a thing that occurred. So I don't want to be over dramatic about it. I don't want to suggest that Kevin Willard's going to get. That's not the way that this works.
Yeah.
the season's going to play out. There's going to be a lot more games, and there's going to be a lot more opportunities. But if you get through the entire season without winning games on the road and you fall to being like a 9 or a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament,
yeah, you're toast.
I don't
look. I gave him a pass on the Washington game. I had a sense that was going to be just tricky, and then because Oregon had gotten killed by Illinois, made that game even tougher. But last night is pretty inexcusable.
You have to figure out a way to win that basketball game.
Yeah.
And you can say that there were a lot of goofy things that occurred. The officiating was dreadful, right? Like that part is true. And you can say
it was equally bad, I thought, for both teams, though.
Yeah, probably. You know, there were a couple that stood like the one in overtime, the foul on the drive, the fast break.
Yeah.
That would have put them up by 4. Like that was particularly egregious to swallow the whistle in that moment, just because of the spot in the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I don't think it was good either way. And they dropped the ball. They just like not figuratively, they literally dropped the ball, and it's hard to say that's on Kevin Willard. What can Kevin Willard do to make them catch the ball when the ball comes to him? Even what happened at the end of overtime, they get the ball out. It's Juju Reese was the only player that had a great night. The ball's waiting there in his hands, and then as soon as it comes to him, he has it knocked out of his hands. Like they just couldn't hang on to the basketball last night, and it's hard to blame that on Kevin Willard other than to say the buck stops somewhere.
And one of the things you do like, or at least I do, about Kevin Willard is his teams usually play with defensive intensity. That breakdown on that last play in overtime was just inexcusable.
And give credit to Chris Collins for how he drew it up in order to get the attention off of I don't remember the kid.
Barnheiser.
Well, the attention went to Barnheiser.
Right.
Who was the kid?
Martinelli hit the shot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Give him credit. That was well drawn up and clearly quite well executed. But ugh.
So we'll talk about the team in Baltimore that is very good at basketball.
I did. I went to the Towson game last night. Griffin went to the Towson game last night. That was ugly for a while. They were down 18. And
who'd they play?
They played Hofstra.
Yeah.
Hofstra, they did this. They ran an offense in the first half called "Don't Miss."
Yeah, that was
which
tough to defend.
I gotta tell you, if I were a coach, I'd call that more frequently. Like I would call the.
What's the key to that?
Don't miss. Now, to be fair, Towson also played a defensive strategy in the first half called "Don't Defend."
Don't defend. That's a bad combination.
I looked up with about a minute left in the first half, and I was like, does that say Hofstra 10 fouls and Towson 2? Because that doesn't seem right. And then I was reminded by everybody that I was sitting with, well, that's what happens when you don't defend. If you don't play defense, it's hard to foul. You're not there to foul anyone.
But nobody fouled out from Towson last night, did they?
No,
and
they
did play
not.
the end of the first half pretty.
Yeah, at the end of the first half, they had lots of fouls to give.
Yeah.
They had lots of fouls to give, and it didn't work out.
So.
And they won the game.
They rallied back in the second half. It took him until the final minute.
Hofstra had, 43 in the first half and 17 in the second half or something like that?
I think it was 41 and 19, but
okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Okay,
What kind of crowd did they have?
Decent. It's tough without the kids there. Like,
I mean, they pulled out of the stops.
Yeah, they did $1 hot dogs, $1 beers. They did everything.
Bring me a hot dog.
I know it's the only reason Stan goes to Florida for spring training.
I'm like Matt Leinart. I just go for the cash back.
That is the worst.
I probably had at least 10 hot dogs.
That is I don't know why I'm doing this. That is the antithesis of that Liberty commercial, which is the Matt Leinart commercial where you're trying to
convince us that's really exciting for like an 8-year-old.
Right. That's Matt Leinart. When anyone on the face of who? Imagine trying to convince your kid
right.
It's Matt Leinart. Whoa. What? What is Matt Leinart? What would that be? Why would I care about it? It's such a bad commercial. All right, yeah. So a good night for bad night for UMBC. They lost at home to New Hampshire. Eek. But good night for Towson, bad night for Maryland last night. Stan, you don't have any Bob Uecker stories, do you?
I actually do have one Bob Uecker
I would love for you to tell us a Bob Uecker story.
When I started doing Stan the Fan in 1983, I came up with this idea, because nobody else was pushing me or anything, that I'd go around with a tape recorder, and when the Yankees came to town, I got Mel Allen and Phil Rizzuto to do a little promo. I handwrote it. Hey, this is Mel Allen, the voice of the New York Yankees. Whenever I come to Baltimore, I listen to Stan the Fan on WFBR, right?
It's cool.
Ernie Harwell did it. You name the broadcaster, they did it.
It's cool.
I see Euchre one day, and I said, Mr. Euchre, I said, could you do this? He reads it. He goes, I'm not saying that.
That's your story.
That's Bob Euchre. That's Bob Euchre. That's my one story with Bob Euchre.
This is like when someone died and Mike Francesa would be on the air and they'd be like,
Right.
hey, Mike, Stan Lee passed away. Who the hell is Stan Lee? You got to find the Mike Francesa the day that Frank Robinson died. Comes on the air and he's like, well, we got to lead with Frank Robinson. Frank Robinson passed away.
Right.
However you feel about him. I hated the guy.
I hated the guy. I've held a grudge against Euchre all
you
these
clearly
years.
have.
But I have to admit, I was watching MLB Tonight last night, and they did like a lot on Euchre.
Yeah.
And the guy was very funny.
Oh,
The guy was very funny.
I only ever had like 2 interactions with Bob Euchre over when I lived in Arizona. It was a really great time because
spring training.
You could pick up all this work during spring training.
Right.
Like all these teams or these radio stations would have.
Imagine being a hot dog vendor.
It would be a great time to be a hot dog vendor for sure. So the Cubs at one point I did some stringing for them. The Athletics I did a lot of stuff for them, and the Brewers were one that I did some stuff for, and got to know Bill Schroeder a little bit. But then
First player ever taken in my rotisserie league.
Really?
Yeah, was Bill Schroeder.
Why? Why would that be the first
Somebody
player?
threw his name out.
Okay,
And he
all right.
went, I'll never forget, he went for $8.
Okay.
Bill Schroeder.
How about that?
The Pacifica League.
So
1985.
That's so random. What a random way to
I
start
know.
your draft. Anyway, so I had a couple interactions with Euchre who I would say it wasn't like warm and inviting.
No, he was a bit of an asshole to average folk. You know.
And he never, like, we would ask a million times if he'd come on the show, and no, I don't really do that. That's not what
I'm too big. You know.
Kinda. There was kind of, he wouldn't use those words, but yeah, there was kind of some of that. But goddamn, that man was funny.
Yeah.
God, he was
his line. He goes, "I'm still a little bitter about it because I really think I should have gone in as a player."
Yeah, right there.
And his Hall of Fame speech was really
that
priceless.
was really great.
Yeah.
And look, you know, this is a sport that could use more characters, more larger than life figures. That
I mean, like Albert Bell, for example.
Well, I don't know if that's the type that they should be looking for exactly. I don't know if maybe that's the one, but they can use a million more Bob Euchres.
Characters, Harry Carey.
Yes, the types of people that Bob Euchre going on late night television,
Right.
the same way that Art Donovan did. It was good for baseball.
Yeah.
It made him somebody. It made him a celebrity. It made him someone that when the Brewers would come to town, it was a big deal that Bob Euchre was in your town. And
Well, look, Joe Garagiola really predated
that's
Euchre,
true.
and he was
Yeah.
on Carson all the time, and that led to his eventually hosting the Today
That's
Show.
correct.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I
Look,
finally made one good point.
it's the first one. That is the first. How many times have we done this together?
Yeah.
It's the first
First
one.
really
that you
good
made.
point.
No, safe home Bob Euchre, hilarious man, but you still owe Stan a liner, so you can get around to that, whatever you want.
I love to throw in the point like Mel Allen didn't know me.
I was like
He did.
really,
I'd be happy
I
to
was
do it.
really thinking there was going to be a heartfelt story
right.
coming from
He was gonna say
Stan.
something
Like,
really
there's going to be like a
clever.
sweet,
Yeah.
like when he started with, you know what, I actually do have a story. I was like, oh, I'm so glad that we didn't prep this. Now you can put it on and like I can react accordingly. Like, man, God, that is sweet. And, like, what a great way to celebrate Bob Euchre. And instead, that guy was an asshole. Which, in a way,
Warm and fuzzy.
I got to be honest, I think Bob Euchre would appreciate.
Yes,
Like,
I
that's the
think he
reason
would.
why I don't have an issue with
He's
this.
up there smiling
I
down
think that
on
he
him.
actually would appreciate the fact that
Actually,
that's what,
it feels like somebody's
don't,
pissing on him.
God. A truly larger-than-life figure in the game of baseball. Bob Euchre passing away yesterday. We today, I mentioned that we have a bunch of guests. Griffin also is hellbent. He thinks that you are dying to know who he wants to vote in.
Do you know how many people messaged me?
To the baseball? None. Zero. I know exactly how many did. No one at all.
Yet.
So yeah.
They'll thank me.
So later on in the program, we'll do our Baseball Hall of Fame ballots. If you missed Dave Ginsburg yesterday, he unveiled his ballot on the program. Carlos Beltran picking up a vote and tracking more and more as though he will get in. Announcement is next Tuesday for this year's Baseball Hall of Fame class. And the good news for anybody who doesn't get in this year is next year's class stinks. There is nothing. Like Ryan Braun is like the tops, and I don't think Ryan Braun's going to get in, guys.
Joe Ursulak?
No, I don't think it's going to be his year.
Why we all have to vote for Adam Jones.
To keep him on the ballot, right.
Yeah.
Keep him on the ballot to make sure he gets another
year.
look. Well, Ginn said not doing it. Not doing it, so I don't like the chances. I think Shin-Soo Choo is on next year's ballot. I mean, it is a week. Nick Markakis is on the ballot next year, and, I just I don't think he's
I think
a
couple of the people that fall short this year will be the prominent people.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. There are going to be one or two that will come a bit short, and that'll be their chance next year. So we'll do that a little bit later on in the program as well. Today's show is brought to you by the CIAA tournament, Griffin.
That's right. Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Line CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament back to the CFG Bank Arena from February 25th through March 1st. Coming up next month. Now, get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com. They are available again. Ticketmaster.com for your tickets to the Food Line CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament, CFG Bank Arena, February 25th through March 1st.
Another day of no practice for Zay Flowers yesterday. And again, I think my assumption is that Zay Flowers does not play on Sunday night. We'll talk about it with Bo here in just a second. I do believe, though, what John Harbaugh said on Monday is true, that if Zay Flowers gets to Sunday, and even though he didn't practice all week, says, I'd like to test it out before the game. I don't want you to rule me out today. I want you to say, whatever. They don't really use doubtful anymore. Doubtful is really not a thing on injury reports any longer. It's pretty much out or questionable.
Game time decision. Or
well, they just say, if they don't know, they just say questionable.
What time
anymore.
do you have to actually do? Do you have till
an hour and a half before the game?
An hour and a half before the game.
So at 4 o'clock on Sunday, they could say to Zay, all right, go run around on the field, see how you're feeling, and if you got it in you, we'll activate you, and if you don't, you don't. And then it's a lot of trust that goes into that because you only get so many spots for active players.
You can't like if you get hurt on the first play.
Like that's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Like that is.
He's not going to. There's no way.
I don't think so, but I was told last week that they would be willing to let him test it out, and it'll be interesting to me. Like today, they might very well just go ahead and rule him out today and say that, by the way, would be more concerning, I would say, about next week. Like it would be.
But there's also the gamesmanship. Why give away that he's definitely out?
Yeah, there's
they have to be
something.
prepared,
There's something, but they did that last week. Like last week on Thursday, they said, "Look, it's not happening. Like he's not playing on Saturday. That's the way that it's going to go." And it will be interesting. It will be interesting. Some of that comes with, do they want him to, if he's not playing, do they really want him to travel? Sometimes when you're dealing with injuries, you don't want somebody on a flight. It's different. They were at home last week.
And standing on the side, sitting in that weather.
Correct. All of those things. So that might be part of it. If you want to do the gamesmanship, maybe he's going to play, but you don't want him to travel, then it's going to become clear.
He's not here, but we're not saying
it's still totally he could wake up Sunday morning and decide to drive himself up to Buffalo.
Or run.
Yeah, right, if he really wanted to. That's a level of gamesmanship that I don't think I don't think they would do. If he's not ruled out today, it to me is because they wanted by the way, if he somehow practices today, then I assume he's playing on Sunday night.
Right.
But I'm not assuming he's going to practice today, and I think this comes down to whether or not they want to buy 2 days for him to test it out. And that is a little bit more unique because of the fact that there would be a flight involved, and to your point, Stan, the weather in Buffalo, you would only do that if you genuinely believe there's a chance that he could play on Sunday. But the good news for the Ravens is that's it. That's the only issue that they're dealing with injury-wise. It's a significant one. I don't want to try to downplay it.
Lamar's okay.
Yeah, Lamar is still okay, despite the fact that he got a hug from Patrick Queen, who had the flu on Sunday night.
Oh,
We have not seen anything this week that would suggest that Lamar, even though that's been an issue, his immune system has not been great over the years. We have not seen anything that would suggest that would be a problem for Lamar. Both teams are really very healthy going into, other than Zay Flowers.
All right.
Let's talk more about it. Joining us now, as he does every Friday, he is Press Box's Ravens beat writer, our buddy Bo Smolka, with us this morning here on GCR. Bo, it's Glenn and Stan. Always good to catch up. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Good morning, you bet.
Hey, Bo, we were just talking about Zay Flowers. I believe John Harbaugh and what he said on Monday, that even if Zay didn't practice today, but they wanted to let him test it on Sunday, I believe they would do that. I just don't know if that's going to end up being the case.
Yeah, I also agree with you on both fronts. I think, he said Monday, well, Zay Flowers, guy that could play without practicing. I mean, yes, technically, I think that's true. I also think it's going to be 10 degrees, 15 degrees. He's not going to work out all week, 2 weeks really. And I'd be surprised if we see him. I do think, there's often John Harbaugh won't play someone that doesn't practice all week. He's got exceptions. I think in this case, Zay Flowers would be an exception. Mm-hmm. But I also believe that for a lot of reasons, I don't think we'll see him. And quite frankly, if they play the way they want to play in this particular game, I think they can win without Zay Flowers. And the first time they played the Bills, Zay Flowers had one catch for 10 yards. If they can run the ball and play their power game the way they want to play, they can win without Zay Flowers. The problem comes if they suddenly fall behind by 17 points and they got to play catch up, then they're really going to miss him.
Bo, wink, wink. How big a role is Deontay Johnson going to have in this game?
I think Deontay Johnson will be watching like the rest of us.
Well, maybe they'll get a compensatory. Let's not.
That was the game plan.
Let's leave it alone. Yeah. Bo, to your point, I know that there are still scars for everybody in this town about what happened in the AFC Championship game a year ago, but I cannot fathom. And what we saw last week, and I talked about it on our postgame show with Femi, I don't think that was the game plan because Zay Flowers got hurt. I think that's the game plan. I just think that's why Derek Henry is here. They brought him here for this. And I would be astonished, to your point, particularly given what Buffalo presents defensively and that they are a smaller front and they do play 5 defensive backs. I would be astonished if this team somehow got away from Derek Henry, Lamar Jackson, run.
I agree. You're right. The Bills play nickel as much as anyone in the league. They're on the smaller side, and against the Steelers last week, the Ravens used a 6th offensive lineman 16 times. Plus, they have the fullback. Plus, they've got big tight end in Kolar. I think that is their formula. To me, the biggest thing for them is avoiding early down penalties and putting them in 2nd and 17. And now it's suddenly you probably do have to think about throwing. Although, in point of fact, the way this team runs the ball, if Lamar Jackson-Derrick Henry getting 8 or 9 yards a pop, I'm not sure you do as often as predictably as some would think. But I think staying away from long down and distance is critical for them to just be able to keep pounding the ball. That's what they do, as you said. They brought Derrick Henry in for this. Exactly right. This was the vision. This is his time. And this is how they can win, specifically, especially this game.
Bo, Deontay Hardy, is he going to play this game?
If I had to bet, I would say no. Okay. I asked John Harbaugh about him on Monday, and we asked Chris Horton, the special teams coordinator, about him yesterday. And in both cases, they both pointed to how long he's been out, and he's missed half the year.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like they're all that comfortable throwing him right back in right now at this time. So I don't think that he is. And I know that there's been issues. There have been a lot of tense moments with this punt return team. Steven Sims dropped one the other day and recovered it at the 5-yard line. He was tentative on another one and let it bounce. And Chris Horton dismissed that yesterday and basically said, hey, if he doesn't know, let it go. Our big job is to give the ball back to our offense, and in that case, we gave it back to the offense. That was kind of a tactful thing to say, but they can't be comfortable with the indecision back there. Tylan Wallace had it as well. So I don't think they can be comfortable with really anything they've seen from the punt return game. But that's not to say Deontay Hardy coming back after 10 games off, not playing at all, is suddenly going to add to the comfort level. I don't see it. So the way they talk this week, I don't think he'll play.
Was he practicing this week, though?
Yeah.
Yes, he is out there. He's practicing, and he's technically still on injured reserve, so they'd have to make a roster move, which would be easy to do. But, yeah, he's practicing. He's out there on the field. So, and as John said, he's ready. You ask him, he's ready to go. The question is, are they ready to have him go? And I still would be surprised.
Bo, big picture, a question for me is Brandon Stevens. How do they kind of cover up for his deficiencies against a quarterback that is capable of really picking him apart?
It's a good question. Well, one, you try to get to Josh Allen, which won't be easy because he gets sacked less often than just about anybody, and he can extend the play.
Right. As
Marlon Humphrey said yesterday, he can juke you, he can run you over, and Zach Orr, Humphrey, several of them said, with Josh Allen, it's a lot like they used to say. Zach Orr likened it to Ben Roethlisberger, who he played against. He goes, the play just is never, ever over with him. You think it's over, and it's not. So the first thing is try to get the play over. Try to get him on the ground. How they will kind of compensate, I don't know. If he's going to be on one-on-one, he's going to have to play the ball. He's going to have to not be grabby. You could rotate guys. They could try Tre'Davious White out there. They're doing that more and more. Nate Wiggins, if you want to play him out there and move Marlon Humphrey outside at times. The problem is they're playing Humphrey more and more inside now with keeping Kyle Hamilton deep. And we've all seen this is a better defense with Kyle Hamilton deep. So Stevens is the guy that other teams have clearly put a bullseye on to attack. And that's on Stevens and that's on Zach Orr to figure out how to stop it.
He is Press Box Ravens beat writer Bo Smolka. He's with us here on GCR. But with that in mind, obviously in Baltimore, the Ravens destroyed the Bills earlier this season. Does any of that matter? I mean, we know the Bills were down some of their defensive players, and we know that they didn't have Amari Cooper yet. We also know that at the time it was a bad Ravens defense, that was the only game that they played particularly well in early on in the season. Does anything about what happened in Week 4 matter as these teams get together again on Sunday night?
I mean, on the level, probably. I say this: it just feels like a generation ago that game was played. It seems so long ago, and the teams have changed a lot since then. Josh Allen's 2-2 in his career against the Ravens with a completion percentage of around 50%. He has not particularly played well against the Ravens. They've had. I won't call it the secret sauce, but they frustrated him in ways that he hasn't been frustrated by other teams. So they have that going for them. That's not to say it's going to happen again. And Josh Allen's, obviously a tremendous competitor. He's playing at home where they haven't lost all year and all of that. I don't put a ton of it into that game. I mean, I'm sure the Bills are because they are fired up to show that they are better than they were that day. The Ravens are guarded because they can't afford to be complacent and say, oh, we rolled past these guys the one time around. No one's saying that. So, and there were several players, as you said, several players on defense were out. They didn't get Cooper. The teams are different. They're very different. So I don't think you could put a ton of it. I think you put more into how these teams looked, frankly, last week. I think what these teams looked like last week is much more like what we're going to see this week.
We talked last week. Lamar addressed that in his playoff history, he had dealt with antsiness. He looked incredibly comfortable last week. Game circumstances certainly help. I wrote about it this week. I think that the narrative surrounding Lamar as a playoff quarterback has been skewed by someone who was 21 and 22 years old and is not at all the same guy. And I don't think it's fair to say Lamar Jackson's a bad playoff quarterback, but the weight of this, I think, still exists. And if things start going wrong on Sunday night, is there reason to worry that you get back to the antsy version of Lamar Jackson who's feeling all of the narratives and all of the weight of having never made a Super Bowl?
Well, a couple things there. Number one, nationally, if they do not win Sunday, he's going to face that. There's just no getting away from it. He's going to face the criticism if they don't win Sunday. So nationally, there's no running from it. It's going to be on him. To your point, I do also see in him a different guy than we saw early in his career in the playoffs. Again, they've only won one game this year. If they lose now, here you can't win the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. But I will say he looks to me to be, yes, I agree with him. He looks less antsy. He looks more composed. He looks more, I don't know if relaxed is the right word, but I agree with you that I think if they fall behind by 10 or 13 points, I think he is much less likely to kind of hit the panic button than he would have been 2 or 3 years ago. I know he missed one season in the playoffs when he was hurt, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. I agree with that completely. I think he's got a different approach now. I think they're a different team now, obviously, but I do think his mindset has changed. I think he's less. I think he is less antsy, and I think he is. I think he's less likely to kind of try to do it all or force the issue, and in ways that he might have early in his career. And I think that's a big, big difference as he grows up.
Two-pronged question. How much of that antsiness was, and I'm not suggesting he played well in these playoff games in the past, but how much of that antsiness was really more coaching-driven, that they started to throw the ball? You know, whenever they got behind, they played like, if they were behind by 7 points, they were playing like they were behind by 21 points.
Well, that's certainly one of the huge criticisms. It was for Greg Roman, and it was last year with Todd Monken in the championship game when the running backs ran 6 times all day. Yep. And in a game, they were never down by more than 10 points, or they were 14 early and then they got to 7. I mean, that certainly some of that does not fall on him at all. Other times, think about the end zone pass into triple coverage last year, a couple fumbles along the way that were kind of self-inflicted. Those kinds of things, I think, have been an issue. Obviously, ball security and turnover issue is going to be probably the number one thing for either team. If any team can steal a possession with a turnover or two, that's going to change this game. But to your point, yes, I think some of that certainly falls on the coaching staffs over the years for getting away from who they are.
Yep.
And then sometimes Jackson hasn't played particularly well.
Yeah.
But I do see a different kind of more calm player now. But again, if they were to lose, the national narrative on him not being able to win the big game of the playoffs is not going away. So the pressure is really on him. I think he's in a good place to handle it now.
The second prong of that question, though, was how much easier is it to be a little bit more relaxed and confident when you have Derek Henry behind you?
I mean, it certainly helps. And but only if they use him and not get away from him. And so, to me, one of the more fascinating things would be, let's say the Bills score and they stop the Ravens and the Bills score again, and now it's 14-0 with 2 minutes left in the first quarter. What happens then? And we've seen in the past, they get away from running the ball. It's early in the game. They can't get away from being who they are at that point in the game. Now, if it's 27-9 in the fourth quarter and they got okay. But they can't get away from who they are. And Derrick Henry certainly helps him relax. He makes them. We saw last week with Pittsburgh. I think the Pittsburgh game was such a perfect example of how dangerous the two of them are together.
Yeah.
The Steelers had no idea how to handle it because they crashed on Henry and Lamar Jackson kept. And then when Lamar Jackson, after doing that a few times, Lamar Jackson gives it to Henry. But the read option is late. The defense sucks over with Jackson, and all you have to do is wait half a second. You take a half step the wrong way, and it's too late because by then you see Falele pull and seal off the block. Linderbaum pulls up and seals off the block, and now Henry has a running lane, and it is over. So the two of them together are just so hard to defend as long as they keep themselves in positive down and distance situations, which, like I said before, I think is the biggest thing for them.
All right, Bo, anything else that you're thinking about, you're monitoring heading into Sunday nights?
And a prediction.
My prediction, honestly, I think the Ravens are going to win. I think, people have said it all along. I think styles make fights, like they say. I just think this is not a great matchup for the Bills. If they want to play, I said to someone else earlier this week, it feels like the Bills are a 20-25 defense with all their nickel and all their spreading, and the Ravens want to be like a 1980s offense, just run the ball and pound it. And I know Lamar Jackson is not a 1980s player, but this just 50 runs for 300 yards is like 1980 football. Mm-hmm. So I think that's who they want to be, and I think the matchup doesn't do well for Buffalo. But again, you have to play without errors, and you can't turn the ball over. You can't give short fields, but I do think the Ravens are matchup favorably.
We made a prediction for Monday night, Bo. That's what we were talking about.
Oh, the Monday night national championship.
That's what I wanted to get at. Yeah.
Oh,
anyway, Notre Dame can win the game.
Yeah, they can win the game. Look, they played last year, and it came down to the last play of the game, and Ohio State scored because Notre Dame only had 10 guys on the field.
That's never good.
Notre Dame can win the game.
Yeah, and because Lou Holtz was talking trash. That's why they lost, because Lou Holtz was talking trash, and Ryan Day had to find a 90-year-old to beat up afterwards or something.
Well, I told my son after Ohio State lost to Michigan, I said, you watch, Ryan Day is going to the national championship, and all the Ryan Day haters are going to be completely in shambles.
Yeah, until they lose, and then they'll be right back after him. At B Smolka is how you follow him. PressBoxOnline.com to see his stuff. Bo, always appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you next Friday.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
That's Bo Smolka, PressBox Ravens beat writer. When we come back in, we'll go up to Buffalo. Ryan O'Halloran from the Buffalo News. Talk about that side of Sunday night. That's next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
PressBox's Project Game Day is the place to be after every game this season. Join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Ayanbadejo, and our cast of regulars as they break down what happened, why it mattered, and what it means moving forward. You can watch the show at PressBoxOnline.com/GameDay or PressBox's Facebook and YouTube pages. Project Game Day is brought to you by the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson and Canton, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. So join us for Project Game Day after every game day this football season at PressBoxOnline.com/GameDay.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
Back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Friday edition of the program. Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with us. And Stan, you were doing your own Ravens-Bills preview this week.
Yeah, I had Childs Walker from the Baltimore Sun. Tried to get my good friend Jeff Zuri back, but
yes, Jeff's a busy man.
Jeff's father-in-law passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh.
just sort of like your situation. He was up in Boston, so he's back in town. But so I asked him real quick, can you get me Childs? And he sent me his number, and I texted Childs, and he was happy to do it. First time I've ever interviewed Childs, and found out something that Childs, when he was a young man, used to listen to my show all the time.
How about that?
I said, you know what that means, Child? I'm old.
Yeah. Well, no, we wouldn't say that out loud.
Yeah. Only behind my back.
Anyway, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. Go to YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video in order to check it out. Stan's shows, as always, brought to you by the Costas Inn.
You know where I'm having dinner tonight?
Where are you having dinner?
The
Costas Inn is the place to have dinner. There's going to be a lot more Costas. I can't do it tonight. Oh, man, I don't want to talk about it.
Why?
I promised my 7-year-old I'd take him to the Ravens Pop-Up Ice Festival tonight.
What do you mean you don't want to talk about that? That sounds great.
You want to take him? You can, by all means, Griffin. You can take my son to the Ravens Pop-Up Ice Festival.
You get a voucher for some
no.
Some
what exactly happened?
You just talking about how great it was.
I
don't know.
Did they give you a rifle?
I don't know what happened.
Pops up.
All I know is I had to bring gloves and a hat and a scarf with me today because I'm going to be outside with my son tonight.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, sounds great, doesn't it?
That's you and Sam, right?
Yep, that's my younger son. That's where we're going to be this evening. Older son has a basketball game. He's not happy about it. He is distraught. He asked if he could not go to his basketball game.
Is Graham on a date tonight?
No, he's got a basketball game.
Oh,
that's what he's got. Ravens-Bills Sunday night in Buffalo. Let's head up there right now, find out about the other side of the matchup. He, of course, covers the Bills for the Buffalo News. He is Mr. Ryan O'Halloran, and he's with us now here on GCR. Ryan, it's Glenn and Stan here in Baltimore. Great to chat with you, man. Thank you for squeezing us in what's been a very busy week.
Hey, good to join you, fellas. How are we doing this morning?
Everything's good here. I imagine life is pretty good in Buffalo.
What's the temperature up there, Ryan?
It is right now in my car. It is 32 degrees, and I mean, tell you what, that's damn balmy. I mean, I don't have a jacket on.
It's a nice summer day at the moment in Buffalo. Ryan, it's funny because everybody will bring up the fact that the Bills are undefeated at home this season. Not every game is played in frigid temperatures. We joke about that, but in September it's not 8 degrees in Buffalo. How much of that is there's something mythical about having to play in Buffalo? How much of it is they had the right schedule? The AFC East isn't very good. How unbeatable are the Bills in Buffalo?
I mean, the last years in the playoffs would show very beatable, with Cincinnati and Kansas City coming in here in the divisional round. You know, the reason they're 9-0 at home, they got Josh Allen. The other team doesn't, and they beat. They destroyed their division. They beat Kansas City here. So the schedule was beneficial, but that's what you're supposed to do against weaker teams on your home field when the weather is maybe a little dicey.
So obviously the game in Week 4 went the other way, and the Ravens won that game handily. A lot has been made about how much the Bills were depleted defensively in that game, and they didn't have Amari Cooper yet. The Ravens, were not a good defense at that point, and yet had a good. How much does that game matter going in? Did we learn anything about these teams, this matchup, from that game, or is it completely different going into Sunday night?
No, I think there's some takeaways from that, and the first one being Derek Henry's a force, and they know how to scheme up stuff for him, and he knows how to break tackles, and he knows how to destroy a nickel defense, and that's going to be the biggest adjustment for the Bills on Sunday. They got to play a 4-3 more when the Ravens go heavy. So on the offensive side, you're right. I thought the Bills would compete in that game because the Ravens' pass defense had been so terrible through the first 3 weeks. Well, never came to fruition. So I think you take a look at it early in the week, and then you sort of recalibrate and say, okay, what do you do well now?
This game's going to be, in my estimation, a pretty darn close football game. I mean, it's a 1.5 spread in favor of the Ravens right now. Is this what you would call a good matchup for the Bills, or is this a tough matchup? Because it's given, aside from the quarterbacks, this seems like it's two teams that play entirely different. You know, the Ravens try and play a power game, and I'd say you guys play more of a finesse skill game.
It's a terrible matchup for the Bills defense. It's probably the worst one in the league right now because of the things you said. This is a defense that majors in 5 defensive backs. They're a little on the lighter side in terms of their front and linebackers. So, and the Ravens took advantage of that. So it's going to be about, okay, how can the Bills slow down Henry? How can they slow down Lamar Jackson on those quarterback keepers? But to your first point, the only thing that would surprise me on Sunday night is if it's not close. I think these are two teams that have a ton of talent, have 2 quarterbacks at the peak of their powers, and I think a lot of points are going to be scored.
He is Ryan O'Halloran. He covers the Bills for the Buffalo News. He's with us here on GCR. Ryan, all that said, look, that's the storyline on Sunday night from a national perspective is these 2 quarterbacks. And given what we learned from All-Pro voting, it probably now looks like it's going to be Lamar that's going to be MVP, although, there is the possibility that, some of these guys split their votes. We'll find that out. Does any of that, give further fuel? This is always a difficult question because if you need more fuel in the divisional round of the playoffs, then it feels like there's a bigger problem. But do you expect there to be maybe a more pissed-off version of the Bills because it looks like Josh Allen isn't going to get that first MVP?
Well, they shouldn't be thinking about that. That's sort of you're putting your motivations in the wrong bucket.
Right.
The motivation is don't become the first team in NFL history to lose in the divisional round 4 straight years. How about that? That's your motivation. I think Josh Allen is the MVP because he didn't lose to Las Vegas and he didn't lose to Cleveland. And the All-Pro votes. And you mentioned if somebody splits a vote between Allen and Jackson for the MVP, they should lose their vote. This isn't a matter of national security. Pick one guy.
I don't disagree with you.
Ryan's really worked up about
this. Right? I want to give you a feel-good story. Damar Hamlin. I haven't paid an awful lot of attention to him as a football player since all of his episode a couple of years back. He seems like he's a very relevant player again. Has that been the case all season, Ryan?
He won. He won the starting job out of camp. Cole Bishop, the rookie, Mike Edwards, the veteran, they both battled injuries. So Hamlin earned that starting job, and then he kept it. He was banged up late in the season. If I'm the Ravens, quite frankly, I run right at him.
Okay.
And I would play Cole Bishop in some heavy personnel sets. Because he was a very good run defender for a rookie. But if I'm the Ravens, I identify a couple of these guys to really test them in the run game.
So it's funny you bring that up because I feel like that's been one of the conversations this week is you want Teron Johnson on the field because he's really good, but is it a liability if you keep him on the field? Are they forced to take him off the field given the matchup?
I think so a little bit. And I wrote for Sunday, the playoffs are no time for feelings. I mean, you have to do what's best for your team on that given day. Turin's a veteran guy. He understands that. There'll be plenty of chances. If they play the run well, there'll be plenty of chances for him to get on the field on passing situations. I don't question Terran as a tackler in the run game, but when he has a 300-pound guy coming after him, that's an eliminator.
Right.
And so that's where the Bills, they cannot be stubborn. They got to learn from last year when Kansas City went heavy and the Bills did not adjust too much. So that's going to be something to watch early on Sunday night.
We talk about the matchup defensively for the Bills. The odd part, I would say, is the other side. It feels, again, like the matchup is better news for a Ravens defense whose one weakness appears to be their outside cornerback, Brandon Stevens, at the moment. But, again, the work that I've done, it doesn't seem like the Bills do want to do a lot outside the hashes, and it might neutralize that. Do you expect that maybe they change that a little bit, given that's the one kind of relative weakness that the Ravens have defensively at the moment?
Well, I would test them. And Amari Cooper has 22 catches since he got traded here. There are a lot of people to throw it to on this offense, so his numbers have suffered. But you don't make a trade for a guy like him mid-season and have him be a spectator in a divisional playoff game. So I would test Stevens early. Another guy to watch, over in the middle of the field is Khalil Shakir. He led the team in catches during the regular season. He does great stuff after the catch. So, this is not going to be a game, I don't think, where one Bills guy has 9 catches. It's going to be 6 and 4 and 5 and 3. So there's a lot of things for Baltimore to be on their P's and Q's about.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I don't know why every opposing team doesn't just say, "This is what we're doing on every play." We're seeing where 21 is, and we're going to go see what happens and how that works out.
Hey, Ryan, the weather, just one aspect of it. I'm hearing that the gusts are going to be like about 10 miles an hour on Sunday night. As accurately as it can be projected 3 days in advance. But what do you expect from the kicking game in this? Are these conditions going to be terrible to kick in?
It depends on that wind. I mean, this stadium, which is a complete and utter fossil, it is dug into the ground. So on TV, they will show the flags atop the uprights not moving, but that doesn't account for the wind coming off the lower end of the stadium.
Okay.
So it is a factor. And late in the regular season, the Bills hosted the Jets, and Sean McDermott won the toss and took the ball because he wanted to get ahead before they flipped the field with the wind. So I'll be interested to see what he does Sunday night if he feels like it's going to be a game-long issue.
We really wish you would tell us how you really feel, by the way, Ryan. It's that you're holding back on this and not really sharing those things.
Well, I will say the Ravens fans who are coming up to the game on Sunday night, just look across the street. That stadium is going to be open in 2026, and it's going to be pretty impressive.
No doubt about that. Ryan, is there anything else that to you, like because we're so obsessed with Derek Henry versus that front, or because we're so obsessed with Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen and the weather, is there anything in you that maybe is a little under the radar that's interesting about this matchup?
Well, we talked about it at the beginning. It can't be left unsaid who the Bills did not have in that first game. Milano is coming on from his biceps. Terrell Bernard is their quarterback, so I think they'll have guys lined up better. But, look at Greg Rousseau. He is long at the edge rusher spot. He's athletic, and he can play the run. So if they can get the Ravens into some passing situations, I think he'll be able to present some issues. And then also, Sean McDermott comes from that Jim Johnson Philadelphia Eagles blitz school. He's got a binder of Jim Johnson blitzes in his office. Does he tell Bobby Babbitt, hey, we have to dial up some different pressures to impact Jackson?
And it'll be interesting to see, how that plays out come Sunday night. At Ryan O'Halloran is how you follow him. BuffaloNews.com is where you can see all of his stuff. I assume for someone from North Dakota, you're not kidding about this. It's 32 degrees outside. You're like, this is actually a really nice day. I'm good here.
Yeah, and I grew up in North Dakota. I've never seen snow like this place.
That part.
So
right.
That's been the adjustment. I can handle the cold. I hate driving in the snow.
Yeah, when it's like a foot of snow, and I guess up there they don't even bother to close schools anymore. They're just like,
at 32, are you going out for an outdoor swim today?
Yeah, right. Around the golf. Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way: I went to the gym this morning and I had shorts on.
It's a psychopath. Ryan, appreciate you, man. Enjoy the game this weekend. Enjoy the beautiful weather today. Thank you for taking the time for us.
All right, fellas. Enjoy the game. Thanks, Al.
Ryan O'Halloran, Buffalo News, with us here on GCR. And a nice balmy day in western New York where it's 32 degrees. All right. Today's show is also brought to you by County Sports Zone. Everything that you need to know about high school sports here in the state of Maryland. Scores, schedules, updates, rankings, they've got you covered, news. And it's not just for, the biggest programs. It's for every school, every level throughout the state. And it's not just for the biggest sports. It's not just, football, basketball, and then lacrosse or baseball. It's every sport that is played at the high school level here in the state of Maryland. They've got you covered. It's countysports.zone. It's proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Countysports.zone, again, is the website. When we come back in, we will continue our previews of Sunday night, get a more middle-of-the-road perspective, the national perspective. Derek Rackley, former NFL tight end. He'll be on the call for Westwood One. He joins us next. Stands here. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their amazingly scrumptious, fat, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. Every season is crab season at Costas, so make your plans now by calling 410-477-1975 and reserve your taste of heaven. Sit back, crack some crabs, and watch the Ravens chase down another title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday nights, Costas offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30, and there are nightly specials Monday through Friday. So head on down to the Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at costasinn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our very special Best of 2024 issue. On the cover, we celebrate our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Lamar Jackson, as Bo Smolka profiles what the quarterback means to the community beyond the football field. Also inside, we celebrate the top people, performances, and moments of the year in local sports. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read the entire issue and find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as we are winding down hour number 1 of a Friday edition of the program. Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with us today. Project Game Day will return on Sunday night, immediately following Ravens-Bills. We hope you'll come hang out with us, myself, Rita, Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Ayanbadejo, KZ, Stecca, and you never know who's hopping in afterwards. On last Saturday, it was Mayor Brandon Scott who hopped on for Project Game Day. You never know who might come join us and hang out for a minute. But we'll be with you.
Josh Charles
is a regular, always hopping in from time to time. You just
KZ?
KZ,
not so much.
I don't know if that's a big surprise.
Bad blood now. It's Mike Tirico type.
I don't think it. You know what's really funny? When I was at the Towson game last night, I bumped into our friend Matt Schlissel, who's of course covered the Tigers for forever. And he was like, boy, sometimes Femi can be really hard on KZ. And I'm like, yeah, Femi's got the I was a football player, you weren't type of thing going for him. He's done that to all of us. And he was like, and sometimes, don't get me wrong, KZ's insane. But, Femi can be really hard on him. It was a fun.
How's KZ doing? I haven't talked to him in a long time.
Soccer dad now, just going up and seeing his son play, and I don't really know what he does for work anymore. I think he still does some consulting, but
he's not at
oh, yeah, he's still over at the school. He is still over there. He's still over at
the school?
The French school.
French school.
Yeah, he's still over there.
He's the athletic
yes, correct.
Assistant
I think he's just the athletic director. Yeah, I think he's still over there doing that. Love Casey, and he will, of course, be part of the show
never
on Sunday
me
night.
A job coaching one of the teams.
That makes one of us, because he did offer me a tennis coaching job at one point, to which I said, "Can I think you can do better?" This is maybe I'm the wrong person for this, because there have been so many times in my life where I've been offered a job and I've really said, I don't know if I'm good. And then in hindsight, I should just do the fake it till you make it thing. Yeah. But that's the first time the great.
You're scared of having a losing record, huh?
I don't want to carry it. I don't want to be that guy.
You don't want talk show people talking about you. Griffin would
he'd be
eviscerate
all
you.
over me.
Yeah.
He'd be checking the record every day.
My friends lost again.
Yeah, right? And like, you know what the problem is? It's the coach.
The coach.
I just said, Ken, I don't know, man. I feel like there's somebody more qualified than I am for the tennis coaching job.
Could have called me.
Yeah? You think that's the path for you at this point in your life?
Could be. Very well could
might be
be.
the anyway, yes, Project Game Day, PressBoxOnline.com/game-day. It's all brought to you by the CIAA Tournament, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. Come hang out with us Sunday night immediately following Ravens-Bills. We'll get in later on this hour. We will do our Baseball Hall of Fame stuff, and also before we get out of here today, we're going to chat with our friend Jay Feely. Pose that question that Stan just posted about kicking in those conditions in Buffalo on Sunday night. So
I'm looking forward to talking to Jay.
So anyway, you know who's really excited to talk to you is Derek Rackley. Joining us now
is he
here on
really?
GCR. He'll be on the broadcast Sunday night for Westwood One. Former NFL tight end and long snapper. He is Mr. Derek Rackley, and he is with us here on the program. Derek, it's Glenn and Stan here in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Who was I excited to talk to, by the way?
Stan.
Yeah, Stan. It's
okay.
it's a long story, Derek. I'm not going to bother you with it. Sometimes we have guests, and the schedule just doesn't work out that Stan can be here for them, and so he gets a little bit upset about that, and so he was really appreciative of the fact that you scheduled around
back
him.
out.
Yeah, you scheduled around him today. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm so glad to be able to accommodate.
Right.
Made me feel good. Made my day.
Derek, it's a shame you don't have a good game to do this week. It's a shame that you get another kind of podunk, run of the mill.
Ho hum.
Yeah, this obviously it's the game of the week. It's it's everything that you could ask for in a football game. What to you is maybe the most interesting part of this game that's getting swallowed up because we're all obsessed with talking about the quarterbacks?
Yeah, good question. And my answer to that is going to be how this really, really talented, experienced, and cohesive group of offensive linemen from Buffalo is going to sort out the different pressures brought by the Baltimore Ravens. Did you guys think that was going to be what I mentioned?
No, I did not think that's where you were going at all. I don't think we've talked about that at all this week, Derek, so I'm glad you're bringing it up.
So the reason
I love Rackley. I love Rackley.
I went back and I watched the matchup from week 4. And obviously there was so many things that you can pull away from that game. Obviously the Buffalo Bills not having a lot of their defensive starters playing in that game, which is a much different story for this matchup. All those guys are back healthy. They're back in the lineup. But really what kind of struck me was how kind of exotic some of the different pressure looks that were brought from Baltimore's defense against Buffalo, and how they were trying to do that to kind of cage up Josh Allen, his athleticism, his ability to extend plays, but more or less try to create confusion on pass protections with the offensive line, of course, but also with the tight ends and the backs and how you're going to pick them up. You don't know who's coming, where they're coming from. They might show 2 guys at the line of scrimmage, but then it's 2 other guys that end up blitzing. So it's the creativity from Zach Orr defensively, the coordinator, and what he tries to do to create pressure and get guys free coming to the quarterback, and that really frustrated Josh Allen in their first matchup.
This is going to be an interesting game of chess, right? Because everything you just brought up, we know is true. The Ravens' defense was not very good at that point in the season, and yet they were very creative, and they had a really good day. Part of what has allowed them to be more successful since that point is kind of being a bit more simplistic, right? Like they're not using Kyle Hamilton in various ways. They are keeping him deep and playing a truer free safety. But what was successful against the Bills was that stuff that you allude to. So which way do you go if you're the Ravens? The playing the type of defense that was successful against this opponent, or playing the type of defense that turned you into, from week 11 on, that statistically the best defense in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. I think Zach Orr was still trying to kind of figure his way out, first of all, and then trying to figure out how he was going to use all these different, as you call them, chess pieces on this Baltimore defense. There's so many really talented individual players, and how do you best use them to kind of fit with what you want to do and how this defense is going to be successful. Now, in this specific matchup, Buffalo's obviously coming off a game against the Broncos where they ran the football really well, and so I would like to think that they're going to try to establish the run game. Obviously, Baltimore's run defense is stout, and so it's going to be a challenge, but you have to try to create some kind of balance so Josh Allen doesn't have to do everything. We know that he's comfortable doing that. We know that Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for Buffalo, is comfortable doing that because that's the type of player he is. I mean, he's a generational type talent that is comfortable putting his team on the shoulders and trying to make the plays that he needs to help his team win. But you've got to try to find a way to have some balance. So I think they're going to try to establish some run game early in the first half to see if they can get James Cook and the rest of this rushing offense going, so it's not having to be Josh Allen on scramble, Josh Allen on pass, Josh Allen on short yardage, quarterback sneak up the middle. I just think you put too much on his shoulders in this game, and Buffalo's going to end up coming up short.
Derek, you were a tight end, and could you talk a little bit about how important the tight ends are to both quarterbacks?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I go back and I look at that matchup from week 4 and watching how Baltimore used both Likely and Andrews, and I would also say the fullback in Ricard, and all the different misdirection that they like to run, right? They're pulling guards one direction, they got tight ends going the other direction, they got the fullback going the third direction, and then all of a sudden, okay, Lamar Jackson goes the fourth direction, right? From a defensive standpoint, it's really difficult to sort out what's your key. Right? A lot of times as a defensive player, you follow pulling offensive linemen. Generally, offensive linemen are going to take you to where the ball is going. But then all of a sudden you see a lineman going left and you see a tight end going right. And you're like, well, wait a minute. And if there's one thing that gets you beat in the NFL playing on defense, is hesitation, right? If you hesitate and you wait, a lot of times you're going to be too late to go make the play. So it's going to be really, really incumbent on these linebackers from Buffalo to find what their keys are, right? This is what the whole week is, sitting down, watching tape with the team, watching different cut-ups on your iPads and everything to try to get a key on when this guy goes, that's where the play goes. The rest of the stuff might be window wash, right? But that's what the coaching staff is trying to break down, is how do we create a slight edge to know which direction they're going, because we've got to find a way to slow down Derrick Henry and the rest of this rushing offense. And if you can't do that, Baltimore's shown that they'll just continue to grind on you all game long, and then they're going to come out in the end with the W.
He's Derek Rackley. He'll be on the call Sunday night, Westwood One for Ravens Bills. Derek, what you just brought up there, I want to phrase it a certain way and get your thought on it. It feels to me, and I think the reason why a lot of people in this city have confidence about the Ravens' ability to go on the road on Sunday night, it feels like this duo of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson has really become like the ultimate trump card. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything, as we know. Like, there can be turnovers, and if you get away, if you're forced to, or you choose to get away from the run, as they did last year in the AFC Championship game, then you can't take advantage of it. It doesn't, to me, guarantee that they're going to win any game, but I don't know that there's anything that anyone presents in the NFL that is more dangerous, that if you do it and it's working, you cannot be beat, than this combination of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, I like the statement, but I would always say that, sacks and turnovers are the equalizer when it comes to those type of scenarios. So, yes, if Baltimore gets loose with the football, right, like, Lamar Jackson ended up in that first matchup trying to go for extra yardage, and he leaped over somebody, and he got the football knocked out, right? Derrick Henry ended up getting the football knocked out down in the goal line, but fortunately, Ricard was able to jump back on top of it. If those two things end up being damaging for Baltimore, then you're right. It could end up kind of swinging the favor back into the hands of Buffalo. But to think of what Derrick Henry's been able to do in the backfield, when you've already got maybe one of the most dynamic and talented quarterbacks in the National Football League in Lamar Jackson, right? Like, you could make the argument that Saquon Barkley going to Philadelphia might be the only competition, but Jalen Hurts is not going to be in the same category right now, the way that Lamar Jackson is playing as far as that 1-2 combination. But those two moves, right, Saquon going to the Eagles and Derrick Henry coming to the Ravens, and what they have brought those respective teams has been fantastic, right? You just look from a front office perspective and you look like you're absolute geniuses. But for everything to work out right, for the coordinators to be able to fit them in perfectly and be able to use the talents of both Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Yeah, you'd like to think if they dominate at the line of scrimmage, they get Derrick Henry going with a full head of steam, so he's able to break through that first wave. He's picking up 6, 7, 8. Then you mix in Lamar with how he's throwing the football this year, and then he tucks it down and runs with it. I mean, that's why this team is so dangerous and why they're in the position they are here in the playoffs.
That's again, it's why I think there's a lot of confidence in what this team's capable of doing. But to your point, like, things can go wrong. And I add to that, like, just the nature of it being on the road and being in Buffalo, and the weather's gonna be a factor, even if it's not gonna be a snowstorm or 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Like, to me, those things, they can become neutralizers. They can make a team. I would think that if there was ever a team that was built to play in those type of conditions, it would be a team with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But it does seem like that is going to have to be a factor that could end up being impactful on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think the difference is here, though, is that, you got a Baltimore team that, although they're not in upper New York, they're still in a climate where, I listened to John Harbaugh's press conferences this week where they're talking about they can't even practice outside because the fields are frozen, right? And so they're doing what they can to make the indoor facility as cold as they can possibly make it. But this is not a New Orleans or a Texas or an Atlanta or a Florida team that's going up to play Buffalo. This is a team that's played in weather. They've played in rain. They've played in cold. They know what this is all about. And the coaching staff is not going to make a big deal about it. They're just going to say, all right, we're going to prepare for it. And guess what? At the end of the day, this is football. And to your point, they can run the rock. If you can run the rock and it's in the cold, when it's cold, you don't have to put the football in the air as much. Your quarterback doesn't worry about being cold as much. This could be a game where Lamar ends up being like 13 of 18 through the air, and he ends up throwing for 172 yards, and they still win because they can pound you on the ground, right? So those are the formulas that you want as an offense. Yeah, we can throw it up there, and we can throw for 300 yards on you, but if we need to grind out a game, we've got run game and we've got defense could beat you. That's why Baltimore's been so dangerous, because they have so many different ways that they can beat you.
Derek, one of the reasons the Ravens have had so many failures in recent vintage in the playoffs has been, to me, that they've gotten away from being who they are because they've failed to get the lead in some of these games. How important is it for this Ravens team to jump on the Bills?
Hey, I would make that argument for any team, because I'm a big proponent of starting fast, no matter where. I'd say this in week 7 of the regular.
I love to start slow.
Yeah. Whoever says that, right?
Yeah.
Who says, let's get ourselves behind and let's just see if we can get to the fourth quarter and trail by 2 scores and see if we can win, right? But I would say that they got off to a great start in the first matchup. And, yeah, you put yourself in the driver's seat, right? Then you have everything from a play calling perspective at your discretion. But then once you get behind, now you get more one-dimensional. And then if that ends up happening with this specific 2024 team, when you have to throw the football and then kind of take away the strength that you have at Derrick Henry, yeah, you're eliminating a certain percentage of your chances of winning the game. I don't know what that number is, but if you're not turning around and giving the ball to Derrick Henry a steady dose, you're probably not going to be as successful. But I would also make this argument too, is that some of the shortcomings in years past and the experience of Lamar Jackson and the rest of the guys that have been on this offense for many years and kind of felt that sting of coming up short, you'd like to think at some point it turns the tide and they feel so much more confident, more comfortable in these situations, and they say, you know what, you remember what happened last year, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever that one thing that they reflect on, we're not going to let that happen today, right? So some of it is what happens in between the ears and in the middle of your chest when you do get some of that, when things go hard, and how do you get yourself out of it? And I think with Lamar Jackson and the rest of the veterans that they have on the offense, you'd like to think that maybe if they get themselves in that situation, they can find a way to dig themselves out.
I will wrap with this, Derek, because I do feel like that invites in another of the narratives, which is like for either of these particular quarterbacks, but the teams, that losing in the divisional round of the playoffs would be incredibly disappointing for what the expectations were for these teams. If something were to go wrong early and you find yourself in a hole, how much of a weight does that become for either one of these quarterbacks, either one of these teams?
You know, I don't really like to talk about pressure when it comes to quarterbacks in the NFL, and specifically when it comes to these two quarterbacks, because, guys, when you're getting paid the amount of money that they are, you have the amount of experience that they do, and you put together two of the best seasons at the quarterback positions, albeit a little bit differently in how they were put together, these guys shouldn't deal with pressure at this point because they've both been in the league for a long time, and this is what they get paid to do, right? That's the one thing sometimes you have to take a step back and understand the reality of the situation. These are not rookie quarterbacks. Like this game that we're going to have this weekend is not Jaden Daniels going into Buffalo, right? It'd be a different scenario if you had a young quarterback like Jaden Daniels or a C.J. Stroud or something like that, not understanding the enormity of the situation. But you're right. I mean, both of these teams are hungry. I mean, their fan bases are starved to get back to the Super Bowl because of how talented they are. I want to say Buffalo has the most regular season wins over the last 5 years for a team that has not gotten to the Super Bowl, right? So they know it. Everybody in that organization knows it. But that's why you get down to this point and there's 8 teams left and they're all really good. There's no game out there that is a cakewalk. You're going to have to go out and execute. You're going to have to be able to tune out the outside noise. And the team that is able to forget about the bad plays that just happened and focus on what's in front of them is likely going to be the one that comes out on top.
Derek Rackley, of course, Sunday night, Westwood One, Ravens, Bills. What else can we plug for you, man?
You could plug Mother Nature to bring a heat wave through Buffalo.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
As I'm on the sidelines, although I don't think that's going to happen. But sometimes you just got to take it. I'm going to layer up as best as possible. And so if you end up hearing my voice crack or I get a little bit bogged up because I'm breathing in cold air, just understand the elements I'm dealing with.
Derek, thanks so much for today. And how did I do? I mean, would you come back on with me again?
I mean, this was appointment radio. So, I mean, I will look forward to the next conversation. I will make sure that I'm available.
Derek,
Thank you, Derek.
Really appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, y'all be good. Take care.
It's Derek Rackley with us here on GCR.
I think he dug me.
You think he meant it? You don't think that was just lip service?
No.
You think?
No.
that,
Can I get his home number?
no.
I would like to call
no,
him.
he was very clear about that wouldn't be the case. Thanks, Derek Rackley, for taking the time for us. All right, let's pause the Ravens-Bills conversation. We're not done with it.
Finally.
Jay Feely will join us later on this hour.
Can't wait to talk to Jay.
Again,
when are we having Jay
Well,
Feely
you said
on?
you needed to duck out a little bit early, right? Didn't you say that today you couldn't stick around until the end of the show?
Stick around.
Yeah,
Jay's going to be very upset.
Oh, he's going to be despondent. I got to tell you.
Just the way if Bob Uecker were coming on the show
right,
today,
yeah,
he would be so upset.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. I will give Bo credit for I don't know why I remember this so well, but the last New Orleans Super Bowl when the Ravens were there in 2012, you get dizzy when you're doing Radio Row. It gets dizzy. Like there's just guest after guest after guest after guest. And we had decided, because the Ravens were in the Super Bowl, that Drew and I were going to do bonus shows on both Saturday and Sunday. We were going to go back in Saturday and do like a 12 to 3 shift, and then I think we were going to do the same thing on Sunday. And so we then realized, like, by Saturday, there's no more guests. Like, nobody's just wandering around. But, like, you typically record enough that you probably have something that's left over that you can play. Like, we thought we'd be all right. And so I'm telling one of my PR friends who's down in New Orleans, like, yeah, like an idiot. Drew and I agreed that we were going to do Saturday and Sunday shows, and everybody else is packed up and left. Right. Like, it's just us, like doofuses. We did our Monday morning show the day after the Super Bowl, and literally you hear, like, the cranes taking everything down in the background. We're the only people broadcasting from Radio Row on Monday morning. But I'm telling my PR friend, he's like, "Oh, well, I got some folks in town that I could bring by on Saturday."
Chris Pica?
No, it's not Chris Pica. Okay. Chris was Chris wanted to come do a segment.
He wasn't any longer in New Orleans back.
No, he was there. He was
12?
he was definitely there. We got into a fight Monday morning because he was mad that I brought up the power, because he was still had an NFL gig at that point.
Right.
And I was like, that could have been a really embarrassing moment for the league. And he was like, "Glenn, why are you so obsessed with this?" And I love Chris. Like, he's one of my favorite people on the face of the planet. But we had all very little sleep. It was a day. But I tell my PR friend, and my PR friend says, "Well, yeah, I'll bring some people by. How about Alyssa Milano is in town? Would you want me to bring Alyssa Milano by?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. We'll squeeze in some time for Alyssa Milano on Saturday." Which was nice, because then there wasn't 100 other people hounding her.
Were there any baseball players around?
I don't remember there being any. I know she's a huge baseball person. So Alyssa Milano does a 30 minutes with us on Saturday, and it's great. Like, we're having a really good time. She takes a picture, and I think
she had a major crush on Drew, didn't she?
That's really the reason why she was there, 100%. Well, this is why I'm going to give Bo credit. So I think Luke Jones posted the picture of us with Alyssa Milano,
Right.
and then the first comment on Facebook was from Bo Smolka, who said, "Wait, when was this? She would have loved to have seen me." It was really good. It was a really good post from Bo Smolka. All right, so yesterday Dave Ginsburg unveiled his Baseball Hall of Fame ballot. He has an actual vote. Like, his vote counts and matters and will be tallied, and will have,
even if it's wrong.
Even if it's wrong, it will have something to do with whether or not these guys get into the Hall of Fame. The three of us, our votes combined count for 0. We have nothing.
Are you sure we can't
Three
get
of
the?
us. No, I don't think.
Can we pitch a
try?
Yeah.
You don't remember when Dan Lebitard turned his vote over to Deadspin, do you?
No.
Oh,
no, I
this
don't.
was Deadspin spent like weeks like hounding voters to see if one of them would let Deadspin readers
make the
file
cast
their
the ballot.
vote, and then they posted one day, "We have a vote." Like, someone has done it, and then they never said who it was. And it wasn't like Jose Rijo was one of the votes. It was all a relevant group of votes so that it wouldn't stand out. Like, there were probably lots of ballots that were turned in that had this exact group of 7 selections or whatever. So months down the road, Dan Lebitard decided to announce it was me that did this, and he has not been invited back to vote for the Hall of Fame since then.
And that's the way it should be.
Correct. Like, it's supposed to be your vote. All right, so we will tell you who would be on our ballot for the Baseball Hall of Fame.
So why did he reveal it?
What's that?
Why did he reveal it that he did it?
I mean, I guess to his credit, transparency. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that was the last time that Dan Lebitard was allowed to vote for the Baseball Hall of Fame.
I feel like my vote has gotten pretty worthless in the avalanche of sanctimony that has swallowed it. That was what
what
have
he
his
said.
father vote for him all the time anyway?
Is that what he said? Oh, that would be hilarious if that's what it was. You okay, so there's another story. I remember for years hearing that there were, like, some of the former Heisman winners did not give a rat's ass about voting for the Heisman, but they were always hassled about it because, like, that's part of the Heisman voting block is any former Heisman winner has a Heisman vote. And you would hear from guys, like, we would talk to them, like, I don't care. I don't even want to file a vote. So I had heard stories that some Heisman voters literally would just, like, let their sons, like, vote for them. Like, you tell me. I'm not watching. I don't even know who these guys are. You decide who you want to vote for. So one day, I mean, you use it, or do you just, like, let one of your buddies vote or something like that? And he was, like, incensed. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, whoa, man. Like, I wasn't trying to, like, investigate anything. Like, that was a little bit much. Like, he was incensed that I would ask if he allowed someone else to have his Heisman vote. We do not have a vote, but we'll vote anyway. I have told you over the years I'm normally a big tent guy. Stan, you said you have a smaller ballot this year?
Yeah, I have 6.
You have
Wow,
6.
okay.
Yeah.
I have 7. No, you know what? I have 6. This is probably my smallest
wow.
ballot. Wait a
David
second.
Ginsburg had 4.
He had 4 this year. He dropped Andrew Jones and Omar Vizquel from his ballot. No, I have 7. Sorry. I have 7. And there are others that I thought about, but I have 7. Griffin, how many do you have?
I like I guess even a bigger tent then. You get 10
Oh,
guys
I
to put in.
I
So, yeah,
normally
I'm
would
putting
vote
10
for 10.
I'm putting 10 through.
All right. I guess let's start with the big dogs. Let's start with the ones. I'm at bbhoftracker.com right now. There is one person that has 100% of the vote with about 40% of the votes
Adam's
in.
got that much?
Yeah, Adam Jones.
That's Ichiro Suzuki.
And of course,
Correct.
is Ichiro Suzuki. I assume that Ichiro, actually, they're up to 42% of ballots known now, and he still is trending at 100%. I assume that he is on all 3 of ours.
He's on mine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, fine, I'll put him in.
Yeah, there's just no, yeah, right? How charitable of you, Griffin. There is no argument
He's
against.
going to be thrilled to get
Yeah,
Griffin.
right? It's going to be a big moment for him. Try to get some comment from
He'll
him.
probably, when he makes his speech at Cooperstown, he'll probably cite
say,
Griffin.
I might not be here had it not been for the support
Bass.
of Griffin Bass on Glenn Clark Radio.
That'll be really nice of him.
Also on this first year of eligibility, right now at 93.3% of ballots and tracking to get in is CC Sabathia. Is CC Sabathia on your ballot?
He's on my list, despite the fact that I think he threw at Nick Markakis.
You're still not. Yeah. You're not okay with that. You're not.
I'm not
over
okay
it,
with it, but I think he is a Hall of Famer.
Griffin?
I agree. Yeah, CC is definitely he is on my ballot.
He is also on my ballot, so we are a clean sweep. Next, at 84.8% of the vote in his final year of eligibility to be voted in before it would be turned over to a committee, Billy Wagner. Does Billy Wagner earn your vote?
Billy Wagner's been on my ballot for about 6 years. I think he's vastly underrated. Has a whip that is lower than Mariano Rivera's whip. One of the most his innings pitched. I haven't looked this up for a while. His innings pitched versus hits allowed and strikeouts is just like astronomical. And that's why his whip is so low.
Correct.
He's got a whip under 1.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. No question about it.
600 hits allowed, 900 innings pitched. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
It is a dominant.
And how many
number.
strikeouts?
And he has
1,300?
He's 4 shy of 1,200 strikeouts.
1,200 and 900 innings.
Do you think that provided he gets, I'm assuming he's on yours as well?
Yeah, he's going to be in mine. He wasn't always on my ballot, but yeah, over the last few years.
Look at you, charitable Griffin backs.
You know, 10 guys on the ballot. Billy Wagner.
Do you think there's another closer that gets in
this year?
No, moving forward.
Don't know. I would think so. Don't pin me to the wall like right this second.
Felix Bautista, yeah.
Well, of course.
That'd be
the
really
mountain.
Nice. Frankie Rodriguez had more saves than Billy Wagner, but to your point, his numbers not nearly as dominant as Billy Wagner's. No. But Frankie Rodriguez right now
Frankie Rodriguez was a terrific pitcher. I loved when Dan Duquette acquired him. He seemed like he was so disinterested in being part of the Orioles.
Right now, he's sitting at 7.9% of the vote. Does not. I mean, it bodes well for keeping him on the ballot, but he's in his 3rd year. He is not gaining any traction to be
to your point, maybe potentially next year is where his case gets dove into much deeper. But
you're not going from 7.9% to 75%. That is not happening. All right.
Maybe if he'd spent less time after games on his cell phone.
You think that's the issue is him not talking to the?
I actually went up to him and I said, "Hey, I'm getting all these relief pitchers to
do these liners for me." And it was weird. He actually said, "Hi, I'm Francisco Rodriguez, and I always listen to Bob Uecker." That was really strange how that worked out. The only other player at the moment that is trending and this is always tricky because with the tracker over the years, you want to be north of 80% because typically the ballots that aren't made public tend to be a bit stricter.
Is this Beltran?
Carlos Beltran at the moment is 80.6%, and he falls very much into the theory of people that are more reluctant to share their votes.
This is his first year?
This is his third year on the ballot.
But he's where Billy Wagner was like two years ago.
More or less. His last year he was at 57.1% on the final numbers.
Right.
This year he's trending at 80.6%.
And so he'll get about 70%, my prediction this year. He'll get
that'd be a bigger drop than typical from where you are trending.
Okay.
But from when you're trending, it tends to be about a 5 to 6% drop. So he's really kind of right
on the border.
He's really kind of right on the line. It'll be interesting to see how that continues. Now, to your point, because there's controversy involved, sometimes that could lead to another percentage or so drop, and that could be the difference. I'd be stunned if he ended up under 70 at this point.
Right.
But yes, it is
He'll make it next year.
It's not a sure thing, and to your point, it probably bodes well for if it's not this year.
Especially when you said how
there's
light
no candidates next year. So is Carlos Beltran on your ballot?
Yes, he is.
Griffin?
He is on my ballot. He is. I mean, I guess all three of us are unanimous here, but I mean, in my mind, he's no doubt a Hall of Famer. 2,700 hits, 435 home runs, 1,500 RBI. There's 20 players that have those three numbers. The only ones not in the Hall of Fame: Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Rafael Palmeiro, and then Pujols and Miguel Cabrera.
Who will be Who clearly will be. All right. Next up on the list, he's sitting at 73.3% right now. He's not going to get in this year, but he still has 2 more years after this year. One of my favorite baseball players that I got to watch, Andrew Jones. Stan.
Andrew Jones to me, and I get the home runs, and I get the incredible defense in center field. But last 6 years in the major leagues, these were his batting averages. And again, remember, this is not somebody that played like Julio Franco till he was 46 years old or something like that. This is like from age 30 to 36 or something like that. 222, 158, 214, 230, 247, 197. That was from age 31. That is not a Hall of Famer to me.
Well, certainly not in those years. There's no debate that he's definitely not in those years a Hall of Famer.
Well, for me, that's part of being a Hall of Famer is the totality of your career.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
He's not a Hall of Famer in my book.
Griffin?
He is on my ballot. He's been on my ballot the last couple of years. One
your
of the
ballot
greatest,
should be
ballot
right?
Should we might have to think about that. That's
one of the
great
greatest
point.
defensive, maybe the greatest defensive outfielder of all time. What, he had 10 straight years of playing Gold Glove center field, and I mean, yeah, to Stan's point, the last several years of his career were not very good at all. But he was a tremendous power hitter as well. At the same time as being one of the best defensive outfielders of really the history of baseball. He was one of the quickest players to 300 home runs, I believe. Like one of the youngest to reach 300. I forget what who the youngest.
How many stolen bases?
He had 152 in his career.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of my players had over 400.
I do. And
I know who your guy is.
He stole 20 bags for his first 4 seasons.
He was a real good player. To me, he's in the Hall of Very Good.
He does get a vote for me. Now it's interesting because I know who you're thinking of.
If he wins the MVP in 2005, does that make a better case for him, Stan?
What's that?
If he wins the MVP in 2005, does that make a better case for him?
Not really. Doesn't take away that. That was the year Braun won it.
No. That was Pujols won in 05.
Pujols.
Yeah.
Those last 6 years, that's just not, to me.
And Andrew Jones' career WAR is 62.7. That's above the likes of Harmon Killebrew and Ichiro and Yogi Berra and Vlad Guerrero and Mike Piott. Like the value of what Andrew Jones did because he was so good defensively, to me, does make up for the unquestioned part where he just fell off the face of the planet as a hitter later in his career. But the totality of what he presented to me is still so significant that I do believe he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. It will be interesting to see on his final.
That WAR is a compelling
I really hate that I have fallen into like
WAR. But WAR is a useful tool.
And by the way,
to weigh somebody.
It's something that I'm going to have to think about more with like because your guy is not that far behind him.
Right.
Like I have never he's not on my list. We'll go ahead and do it. Tell me the Bobby Abreu's on your ballot.
Yeah, he's on my ballot.
Bobby Abreu's on your ballot. For what it's worth,
2,400 hits, 400 stolen bases, and on-base percentage really compelling. Very underrated player.
And Bobby Abreu has a better career WAR than Ichiro. Like Bobby Abreu is not that far behind Andrew Jones, and so
is Ichiro's WAR. Or did the Japanese?
It does not count. So it's part, for us. It's part of. We all have the. If Ichiro had played here his entire career, he would be
100%.
There's still a real chance to me that he is a 100%er, right? But like that's why I don't weigh everything.
I think some
on.
Asshole will not vote for him just for.
That's totally possible.
He's Japanese
right.
or something.
But I'll go a step further. Bobby Abreu also has a better career WAR than Vladimir Guerrero, right? Like, and that I am going to
What's
have
his
to.
career WAR, Abreu?
60.2.
Yeah.
And Guerrero was 59.5.
The 400 stolen bases to me, and by the way, had a howitzer for an arm. Very similar defensively to a Santander or a Kenny Singleton. Terrific arm, not a great deal. Santander better than Singleton in covering ground, but Abreu was a terrific player and vastly whether or not he ever makes it in the Hall of Fame, he's vastly underrated.
I agree with that.
Is he on for you?
He's not on my list. I'm telling you, you probably have a
shame,
right? Yeah, but you left Andrew Jones off your list. Let's settle down over here. We have our guys.
Yeah.
It'd be the type of thing where, like, just because I hadn't spent enough time, I would think about that more and say next year.
Yeah.
I think there is room to have.
There's a lot of people, and look, I've been wrong on people before.
You?
Believe it or not, I have been. But seriously, Billy Wagner, I was touting him like 6 years ago when I was on Masson.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, these numbers are, and it's like, as soon as I started, I'm not saying nationally that's what did it, but
I'm pretty sure that's what he said.
It's so clear cut that he was a Hall of Famer 6 years ago. You know.
Yeah. No. I get it. I completely get it. Is it
I
Bobby
don't know
Abreu?
that Abreu will ever definitely make.
How many more? Hang on a second. Let me double check this. How many more ballots he has? Bobby Abreu.
He's not on my list.
He's in his 6th ballot. He still has 4 more years. Right. I could absolutely see this conversation getting louder right now.
Yeah.
The thing that he has against him,
now?
he's only at 25% of the ballot. That screams he's not going to get there.
Make it.
And he never won anything. Like he won one Gold
Well, what
Glove.
have you won?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
Very relevant.
Well, he got that. He got that. Thank you in Billy Wagner's Hall of Fame speech. So,
I mean,
did you get that?
You're saying at best defensively he's Anthony Santander. Like that's the stolen base thing. The stolen base thing is interesting, but it's not like he was a crazy power guy. He was very I guess he was above
hits,
average.
The war.
The one.
No, I think the war is incredibly
How about
compelling.
the on-base what's his on-base percentage?
His on-base
360 career.
395.
395 on-base percentage.
870 career OPS.
870 OPS.
I mean, yeah, there's certainly.
And you're
there's certainly
denying
a case.
him.
I am denying.
Your
The
vote.
one. I am denying him my vote.
I'm starting to think maybe he shouldn't have a vote. I'm starting to think maybe.
I think his vote is rendered.
There was
it's
one
now
more
rendered.
We should give it to Dan Lebitard.
The other compelling note was he is one of 7 players with 900 extra base hits and 400 stolen bases. Only 7 players have done that.
Making a strong argument for Bobby Abreu.
Well, I mean, but it's winning is still part of baseball, and he didn't win awards. He didn't win baseball games either. Like that's.
Didn't win baseball games.
I mean, he won some.
I mean, yeah, but what was the biggest baseball game he won?
Name you one.
Never won a
home
single
run derby.
baseball game.
He won a home run derby.
The Astros.
He won a home run derby. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah. He won a home run derby?
He did, yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all.
That really pushes him over.
It's listed on his.
He wasn't the guy that won the year that Josh Hamilton hit all the home runs, and like we all forgot who won the home run derby that year because we all only remember that Josh Hamilton put on a show. All right.
I wonder how Josh is doing these days.
I don't know I really don't know the answer to that question.
Haven't heard anything bad.
Not at all.
He won the 2005 home run derby.
That wasn't. I don't know what year was the Josh Hamilton year. I couldn't tell you.
That had to be what, 12? No, 9, 10.
Yeah, 9 sounds more like it. All right, the next group of guys that we'll pull up. Let's pull up the.
So you have Bobby Abreu in because he beat Andrew Jones in the 2005 home run derby stand.
Oh, that's the difference maker. Right. That's why he's got Abreu in, Jones out. Is he still thinks about that 2005 home run derby to this day?
I didn't even realize they had the home run derby in 2005.
The next group of guys would be the two that are most closely connected to steroids. That's Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez. Did Alex Rodriguez and oh my gosh, what the heck is happening today?
This is embarrassing.
It really is.
Between his keeping Abreu on,
right?
He's not keeping Abreu off. He's not putting Abreu in either.
Yeah, but it was more embarrassing from you. Do you have one or both of the? Oh my gosh, both of those guys on your ballot. I don't know.
So unprofessional.
Really is.
It's despicable.
Jesus, what the hell is happening? It's like I'm 7. Do you have them on your ballot? Don't.
I scared you.
No, it didn't work.
Way to go, Stan.
Hold your breath.
Yeah.
Just hold your breath.
Oh, I've tried.
Well, Stan makes the case for A-Rod and Manny. Go.
No, they're not on my ballot.
Have you ever been in favor? Or, what
is going on?
Would you vote for David? Would you have voted for David Ortiz?
I'd have to really he was on whatchamacallit's list, wasn't he?
Mitchell Report.
Yeah. I don't think he would.
Or the commissioner list. What do they call that then? It wasn't the Mitchell Report. It was the actual list of people.
Dowd report.
It was who had tested positive, not just who was, linked to it. Right. David Ortiz. By the way, that to me was the end all for I could never steroids could never be part of the equation again for him.
Right.
Once David Ortiz got in. And I was still at the time I would say I was in favor of Barry Bonds getting in. I was in favor of some of the steroid guys getting in. But like Manny Ramirez to me would have been a line.
Yeah.
I would have said Manny Ramirez isn't a Hall of Fame baseball player. He's a guy that hit an S-ton of home runs because he used steroids.
I would love to have really broken down when people, like almost do truth serum.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rafael Palmeiro, I do not believe that he was a steroid user
For the bulk of his career.
For his
right.
career,
Right.
To
later
me,
part of his
to
career.
me, Rafael Palmeiro was a Hall of Fame player.
He was a complete, did everything type of baseball player. Gold Glove award-winning first baseman, someone who people forget stole bases early on in his career, was 3,000 hits on top of 500 home runs. But yes, the steroid thing, took him out of the conversation.
Especially being before Congress.
Right, that was the worst moment where he points his finger.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah, it was terribly embarrassing, and then he literally gets popped later that year.
Yeah.
But to me, I can't. Both those guys have to be on my ballot because David Ortiz got into the Hall. Like, there's no.
So you have A-Rod and
both A-Rod and Manny Ramirez. Look, to me, A-Rod probably would have always been. A-Rod's a scumbag. A-Rod this is the real issue, is that the A-Rod conversation feels like it goes further beyond just using steroids. It's the Lance Armstrong-ish lengths he went to try to evade and people he was willing to throw under the bus and
like Ryan Braun.
All of those things. And I have no problem with the idea that people you, Dave Ginsburg on his real vote, if you say to me, yes, he has a real vote, that you say the damage of that is I won't. I won't. I got no issue with it. I really don't. I understand what you're saying. Alex Rodriguez is a horrible human being, and if the cost of that is he doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, so be it. But for me, simply put, once David Ortiz got in, we don't get to pick and choose. He was a nice guy who used steroids. He was a mean guy who used steroids. Either you used steroids or you didn't. Alex Rodriguez used steroids, but I think beyond just using steroids, he was a great baseball player.
Right.
So to me, there's really no argument anymore for me.
I heard a euchre-like story about David Ortiz. Boog Powell told me this story. Some Oriole employee, I can't remember. I think it was a little old woman who had worked for the Orioles for like 45 years or something like that. She asked David Ortiz for an autograph, and he got her fired. He was so pissed off, and Mrs. Angelos rescinded the firing.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Look, I do.
And he broke a phone at Camden.
That is the hilarity of us treating David Ortiz as the nice guy.
The nice guy.
As the good guy. Yeah. Is like that's the experience. But yeah, that's my issue. Like that you wanted to make a statement about steroid guys, you had your chance. David Ortiz was the one where you could say, we're not doing it. This is supposed to mean something. Right. The moment they broke and decided because Boston and because good story and this is our effing city, they were going to put him in. We can't do it. Now I have to vote for all of the steroid guys because I
will tell you one thing that has always bothered me about this issue is when I hear the whining about how confusing it is, for voters that will never know who really did them and at what lengths. Name me one of these people, Rafael Palmeiro, Sammy Sosa, that was pushing for testing. Not one of them ever pushed for testing that would have cleared them or found them guilty. They all wanted to hide behind the lack of testing at that time.
Then the counter-argument would be, but baseball also wasn't going out of their way to put in testing because they were benefiting from the attention that came from the insane home run numbers that, you let Bud Selig be in.
My basic point is I never felt sorry for the confusion about it because not one of these people tried to champion the fact that, we should have testing so the public knows who was cheating and who wasn't.
What about A-Rod and Manny Griffin?
They're in. They're. I mean, the way I feel like you don't put the steroids guys in on their first ballot. So Ortiz was not on my ballot last year. He would have been this year if he didn't get in last year. But
are they still even on the? Is A-Rod
and Manny are both on the ballot? Yep, they're both on the ballot.
I got to be honest with you. It's interesting because I don't talk about this that often.
Andy Pettit would also have to be in that conversation.
Andy Pettit's on my ballot.
So
Andy Pettit's on my
and there were a lot of steroid,
sniffs about him.
And so I guess maybe walk me through that. You do vote Pettit, but not for the hitters.
I'll tell you, part of it is, and I really didn't think it through, is that I just assume they're never going to make it in. I think Pettit now, there's some traction that he could make it in, and I think the bulk of his career, he was such a great postseason pitcher.
That part I agree.
For me, he's a Hall of Famer.
Again, somebody would say, that's interesting. You voted for the other steroid guys, but Pettit's not on your list. Pettit's not on, and the reason he's not on my list isn't because of the steroids. You're right that the numbers otherwise, to me, don't add up to Hall of Fame. But if you said playoffs, then yes, you could make that compelling argument. I'm not a never on Andy Pettit. That's something that, again, as we get further.
I also have a harder time really understanding what benefits steroids play with a pitcher. In other words, with hitters.
Yeah, you know that it can hit the ball further.
They can hit
right.
the ball further. It's probably the same thing about being able to recover quicker.
100, and I believe because he actually admitted that he had used at one point, and I think that was what he said. Was he just, I'm such a team player. I was trying to get it back out on the mound more quickly and recover more quickly, and with all respect, like, come on, man.
Yeah. He's on my list. He's my sixth player on the list.
All right. Yeah. So that's the list for you.
Yep, my list is Wagner, Sabathia, Suzuki, Beltran, Pettit, and Bobby Abreu.
And we've already got all of mine. Mine is Beltran, Ichiro, A-Rod, Andrew Jones, Sabathia, Wagner, and Manny.
I do put Pettit through.
Okay.
I feel like it's a very similar career, maybe not quite as dominant as CC at times, but the longevity is certainly there. And as Stan mentioned, the playoff success. Again, I do value winning as certainly a part of your Baseball Hall of Fame case. He won 5 World Series, and Andy Pettit was a leader on all of those teams. So, yeah, Andy Pettit is in through the Hall of Fame for me. So that means you're not voting for Vizquel this year, Glenn.
Did I vote for Omar Vizquel last year?
I don't know if you did last year, but
I think I had done in the past.
I know you always.
I have always championed Omar Vizquel, the baseball player, but the allegations that have been made against him are enough for me to say I don't need to champion Omar Vizquel moving forward.
That's probably why David Ginsburg left him.
Took him off the bat, and if that again.
He didn't remember that he had him.
That's really what that's. I absolutely have been an Omar Vizquel, the baseball player, but I believe that was the story for me, is that I stopped saying that I wanted to vote for him because of the allegations that were made against him. Not that, like, I think that's an end-all, be-all, and I don't know enough about it, but it's enough for me to say I don't need to be pounding the desk about Omar Vizquel.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's really just the defensive stuff, and he was a great defensive
he was, no question.
infielder, shortstop, but a career 688
Blue
OPS
Jays
as well.
Made a big acquisition.
Oh?
Miles Straw.
Oh, hell yeah.
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
Is that what Sasaki said? He said,
yeah, right? I'll go if you guys get
Blue
Straw.
Blue Jays acquire Miles Straw and international bonus pool
Ooh,
space
now
from the
that
Guardians.
is significant.
Sasaki.
That is significant because apparently the Dodgers and the Padres are trying to line up more. Imagine all 3 of them acquiring more, and then 2 of them are just be sitting there with all that international money because they're not going to get Sasaki, and there's no one else to spend it on. Like, that's going to work out a certain way. Anybody else on your ballot?
Before we move off Vizquel, the one thing, because I was trying to look for more reasons to say anti-Omar Vizquel because I thought he might be on your ballot. The one thing that is Hall of Fame worthy, his feud with Jose Mesa. Which because when Omar wrote an autobiography, he blamed Jose Mesa for blowing a save in the World Series in '97, and that's why they lost the series. And Mesa did not like that, so he said, every time that I face you, Omar, I'm going to hit you. And this spanned across 4 seasons, and faced each other 3 times, and he hit him each time.
Jose Mesa has an autobiography.
No, Omar Vizquel has an autobiography.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Omar blamed the World Series loss on
somebody told Joey Table about it.
That would be the title for me for Mesa's autobiography.
What?
Joey Tables.
Joey Tables. Old Joey Tables.
So yeah, I like having you get 10 votes. So I put 2 newcomers in. I put Pedroia and Felix Hernandez through it with my 9th and 10th.
I would have to think more about it. Pedroia.
I looked him up
He's
last
not.
night.
He's not
and
close.
I told him
He won an MVP. He won a Rookie of the Year. He won World Series. He
I
won,
told him
he won a lot.
About 7 or 8 years ago, he was walking out of and I was going from the Oriole clubhouse back upstairs, and I said, Dustin, I just want to tell you, I enjoy watching you play baseball as much as anybody. But I looked at the numbers. He's not a Hall of Famer.
No, and he's got a career. He's had the exact same career WAR as Lance Berkman.
Right.
Like, he's not a Hall of. I guess
the
argument for
end of
Dustin
his
Pedroia.
career-
The argument for Dustin Pedroia was he played the position as well as anyone. Like, if you only judge him against other second basemen for a certain time, you could say in this specific stretch of 6 years, he was as good a second baseman as anybody else. You could make that argument, but it's such a small argument.
I get to this point with him. If I'm going to start putting him in, I'm going to put Don Mattingly in because to me, Pedroia's career was ruined by injury. You know, that if he had played to the age of 36 or 37 and not been injured, he was a Hall of Famer. And that's what kept Tony Oliva out until the Veterans Committee put him in. Tony Oliva was one of the greatest players.
Yes, and to the point, I don't think it would be embarrassing if one day deep down the road Dustin Pedroia is reconsidered and they do fall back. I don't think that's embarrassing to the Hall of Fame.
No.
But I don't think there's any argument for him to be voted into the Hall of Fame.
He was one of the leaders on a dominant Red Sox
I'm aware.
team from 07 to 2018. Well, I guess 2018 he was injured as well, didn't play much. But he was a leader in that team. Maybe I have a thing for second baseman as well because Jeff Kent was also my guy.
But Paul O'Neill,
Jeff Kent should be in the Hall of Fame.
I agree.
Paul O'Neill was that guy for the Yankees. Is Paul O'Neill a Hall of Famer?
I'd have to I'd have to revisit him. He was one of the toughest.
Yes,
outs.
there was a lot to like about Paul O'Neill as a baseball player, but is he a
to
Hall
me,
of
he's
Famer?
A Nick Markakis.
Yeah, that's the way that that's sort of the way that I feel.
Maybe a little bit more power.
So you put Markakis in as well, is what you're saying?
No, I don't think he's gonna get. We'll get there. That's next year, Chris.
I'll tell you another player. Another player that's like with Pedroia or Don Mattingly to me is David Wright. I looked him up. He's got 49 WAR, 49.2 WAR, 1,777 hits.
And somebody would say, what about the injuries?
And
what would he have been?
It's the injuries. If he gets 5 more years and those hits are 2,600 and the WAR is over 60, he's a Hall of Famer probably.
You can't compare. Paul O'Neill didn't win. Like, Pedroia won an MVP. He was an MVP second baseman. He won a Rookie of the Year. He won one.
Okay. Like you're making it seem like
it is a big deal winning an MVP. Like,
not every MVP is in the Hall of Fame. Like not even. Is Terry Pendleton a Hall of Famer?
Who?
Dale Murphy's not in the Hall of Fame.
And Dale Murphy to me has a way better argument than Dustin Pedroia does. I got to think about that. I think he does, but I don't.
I got
to think about that.
Back-to-back MVPs. Back-to-back. He fell off the table.
Yes, correct.
And he won a lot more awards than Markakis. He won a lot more baseball games than Nick Markakis. Like,
I'm not making the Nick Markakis argument. I don't.
Well, you're saying you grouping him in with the Markakis.
I'm grouping him in with Paul O'Neill. I think there's a very significant. If you want to make winning the difference in the argument for Dustin Pedroia, then the argument would be
he won
Paul
awards as well.
Because he won an MVP.
300
award.
almost every year that he was healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he finished with what?
He finished a 299 batting average.
Okay.
For his career. OPS
He's
above
a very
800.
good player.
Nobody's arguing. Nobody's saying Dustin Pedroia stinks. Saying Dustin Pedroia is not a Hall of Famer. But go ahead. What else?
Felix Hernandez.
Felix Hernandez.
Yeah.
I got to think about Felix.
Not a Hall of Famer.
I don't know.
What did he win? 161 games.
169 games.
Ooh, wow!
Yes. And he threw a perfect game too.
And he won awards. He won games.
He won a Cy Young. He won 6-time
games.
All-Star.
He won games.
And he was a very good pitcher.
Yeah.
And he had 200. He had like 10 straight seasons or 8 straight seasons of 200 innings. 10 straight with 190.
How is that relevant? Like with Bobby Abreu, okay, he didn't win games. I mean, I don't know the teams that he played for. Maybe they stunk.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Maybe they
on a bad
maybe
team.
they stunk. And he was
and
really
his numbers
incredible.
weren't overwhelming. His numbers were not overwhelming. Like
397 on base percentage.
It's a pretty good number. There's no doubt. If you're making an argument for Dustin Pedroia, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
It was a 395 on base. Not
you should lose your vote.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all right there. All right. There's our Hall of Fame.
One of the most dominant pitchers in baseball for 7 straight seasons.
For a stretch, Felix Hernandez was a feared pitcher for a stretch. I don't think it would be.
Well.
I don't think it would be embarrassing for Felix Hernandez to be in the Hall of Fame, but the numbers don't back up the idea that he needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
I think if you start to give Hall of Fame to a starting pitcher that pitched as long as he did, that won 169 games, you've really watered it down.
This is the only way I'll push back on. I think that the emphasis that you still put on pitcher wins is one that overall
is analytically being dismissed.
And I'm not. It's a complicated conversation because it'd be the same thing, right? Like, well,
what was his whip? 122.
1-2, yeah.
1-2 even.
1-2-0, yeah, 1-2-0.
I mean, it's a very good whip, and his strikeouts were very good. He's in the Hall of very good to me.
K per 9.
Also had a pretty precipitous fall at the end,
quickly,
similar to Andrew Jones. Like it was over. But he is an Orioles legend.
One of the other players that we didn't bring up at all. There's two of them. Mark Burley. And I told you this off the air. Mm-hmm. Mark Burley is kind of a sexy choice. He pitched two no-hitters.
Yeah.
Right?
He's definitely one that I do have to, like, if I'm putting Felix
in,
I definitely have to think more about Burley.
214 games. But get a load of this. Mark Burley was 214 and 160, 381 ERA, 33 complete games, a 128 whip. Milt Pappas, who I think he missed by one win, being one of the only two pitchers, I think Jim Bunning was the other, to win 100 games in both leagues. Milt Pappas was 209, 164 with a 340 ERA, 129 complete games, and a 1.22 whip. Now, again, he wasn't pitching against steroid guys, you know.
Yeah, a different era, right, 100%. But
which plays into Sabathia, Pettit, and Burley. They all faced a lot of steroid users.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just on the surface, like, he just not quite nearly like as dominant and nearly as feared as other guys. Like he had a 5.3 K per 9. Like,
right. His strikeouts are not
was
good.
Very low. Sorry, 5.1 actually.
And
the guy that's getting the biggest chunk of vote outside of the ones Chase Utley.
That's who I was going to mention.
53.9% of the vote.
He's going to make the Hall of Fame.
I think he is as well, and I would tell you that I was alarmed to find out that he had a higher career WAR than.
What was his WAR?
He was 64.5.
64. So he's higher than Beltran.
He was higher than. I don't know if he was higher than Beltran, but he's definitely higher than Andrew Jones, who I said I had voted for. Beltran is 70.1. So
Utley's definitely going to make it.
I think
Utley may make a big jump next year.
Yep. When the ballot is. Chase Utley is 64.5. Craig Biggio 65.5 career WAR. So, like, you know, again, part of that is Utley hit more home runs than Craig Biggio
Chase should
did.
come back and play for the Orioles this year just to raise his
get
WAR.
that one WAR back so that he can be right there with Craig Biggio.
What's Pedroia at? Do you have the
for the voting?
Yeah,
and Utley won games. Utley won games.
That's true.
Pedroia
He did
win games. That helps, Dan.
And he did win a World Series. Pedroia 13.9%. So not a significant chunk. He would have a long road ahead. Utley's at 53. Utley is.
I'll have to definitely give more consideration to Utley.
Now, to be fair, Utley was only at 28 last year, so he's doubled. I mean, we'll see where it ends up. He's probably more like 40-something. But, was in a better place after his first. Last year was his first ballot, so he's significantly ahead of Dustin
You're not going
Pedroia.
to war for Torrey Hunter anymore?
I love Torrey Hunter. But no. No, it's just me loving Torrey Hunter. I think Torrey Hunter was one of my favorite baseball players to watch play. I loved watching Torrey Hunter play
Adam
baseball.
Jones is one of my favorite players.
Adam Jones is one of my favorite baseball players to watch
play. Adam Jones on, would that be?
Just go for it. Just get it. There is a part of me, like, knowing who's gotten Hall of Fame votes over the years, where, like,
he deserves one.
If you use the vote on Adam Jones, just say he doesn't deserve to have no votes compared to other guys that have gotten votes over the years. That's not an offensive thing to me, but. Is there an actual argument for voting Adam? No, of course not. There's no argument for that. All right, Stan, you're going to be back in action next week?
I'll be back in action. I'm interviewing Wednesday at 4:30 the sports editor of the Baltimore Banner.
Oh, that's right, Chris Corman. Yep.
Chris Corman.
Yep. He's still recovering from a Penn State loss. So that'll be at facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Is where you'll be able to check that out. At Stan the Fan on Twitter, and he'll be back with us no matter what happens in the football game. He'll be back with us next Friday morning. Appreciate you as always, sir.
All right, thank you.
We'll come back in. We'll get a tidbit. We'll get Tubular, and then Jay Feely is going to join us.
You don't want me to hang for
Jay
Feely?
I mean, you said you got to get out early, Stan. Said you had to
explain it to Jay.
I know. He'll be really disappointed. He'll be very, very disappointed. That's on the way as we wind down a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
COVID-19 and flu viruses are circulating in Maryland. But don't worry, protection is within arm's reach. Protect your health with this year's COVID-19 and flu shots. It's safe and convenient to get them both at the same time. Flex your protection. For more information, visit health.maryland.gov/vaccines.
This message paid for by the Maryland Department of Health. Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, thanks again to Stan the Fan for hanging out with us on a Friday edition of the program. If you have not picked up the best of...
Come back to do Philly.
Well, you said you had to go.
I do have to go.
It's gonna kill him. I'm not mad, but I don't know how he's gonna feel, Stan. I don't know. Why turning off the lights? Jeez.
Oh, yeah,
Party's over.
Lashing out.
Man. Best of issue is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms and the hundreds of locations around town where you find Pressbox. Of course, our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Lamar Jackson, is on the cover. So many nerves about doing this read next week. So many nerves.
Why?
It just, you
think they're gonna lose?
No,
that's what it sounds like.
Just there's the possibility. There's only two things that can happen, Griffin. They can win or they can lose.
50-50 chance here.
Yep, that's the way that it goes. Anyway, go get that for free today. You can also read it at pressboxonline.com/bestof. All right. Is there anything that we didn't cover today? I feel like we got into everything that we needed. We spent way too much time on this fake Hall of Fame vote.
Yeah, I think that was it.
All right. Well, why don't we get a tidbit then? Tidbit brought to you by the CIAA tournament.
That's right. Baltimore is welcoming the excitement of the Food Lions CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament back to CFG Bank Arena from February 25th through March 1st. Get your tickets now. They are available at Ticketmaster.com. Again, Ticketmaster.com for your tickets to the Food Lion CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament at CFG Bank Arena, February 25th through March 1st.
All right.
The Texans, I like this one. The Texans are the only team in the NFL to not have won a divisional game yet in their history.
They've never won a divisional.
They've never won a divisional round playoff game. They're 0-5 in the divisional round. So can they change it tomorrow?
Probably not, but
Just still trying to get through all the stats I saw from over the weekend. The Ravens had 299 rushing yards to 29 for the Steelers on Saturday.
By the way, no Zay Flowers for practice today, so he will go the whole week without practicing.
That's
doesn't seem
not great.
Doesn't seem likely. I mean, it doesn't seem plausible. I think is what you would say at this point.
It is a plus 270 rushing yardage margin. That is the third largest in an NFL playoff game in NFL history. Only 2 teams had a larger rushing margin over their opposing team. Buffalo had a plus 271 rushing margin over the Dolphins in 1995. And
Maybe with Thurman Thomas.
And the Chicago Bears in 1940 had a plus 276.
It was not with Walter Payton.
No,
yeah.
He played a long time, right?
Yeah, not.
Chicago beat Washington in 1940. That came from Luke Jones, by the way. I like that one. I wanted to make sure I shared it because it also leads me into my next stat about Mr. Derek Henry, who rushed for over 150 yards in that game. It was his 4th playoff game with 150 yards. Ties him for the record most playoff games with 150 yards. There are 8 players, including Derek Henry, obviously. So one other player has 4 playoff games with 150 rushing. 8 players have done it multiple times.
I'll say Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Smith, no. He's not done it twice, potentially. I'm not sure if he ever did.
How about the aforementioned Thurman Thomas?
Thurman Thomas has done it twice.
Marshall Faulk.
Marshall Faulk? Only once, I believe. Yeah, only once. Yeah, for real.
How about Eric Dickerson?
Eric Dickerson has done this twice.
How about Terrell Davis?
Terrell Davis, he would be tied with Derrick Henry for 150.
That's a short career, too.
Yeah, playoff games.
Did win 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Marcus Allen.
Marcus Allen has done it twice.
Okay. How about Edgerrin James?
No edge.
Jerome Bettis.
No bus.
Franco Harris.
Franco Harris is on the list. Twice for Franco Harris.
How about John Riggins?
John Riggins. He's heating up.
How many were there?
8, so I believe. Yeah, just one more.
Because Derrick Henry is one of them?
Yeah, because Derrick Henry is.
Okay. I think I named all the Hall of Famers. Well,
yeah, this guy's not
and this guy's not in the Hall of Fame.
Not Walter Payton.
Not in the Hall of Fame. So who was on? Unfortunately, like the Patriots never withstood like running. They had like about 80 different running backs. Corey Dillon.
No Corey Dillon.
He didn't really play any playoff games in Cincinnati, so that kind of makes sense. Jamal Lewis.
No Jamal Lewis. Should he be in the Hall of Fame?
No, but he's a hell of a player. I mean, like, hell of a player. And it would take you'd have to reconsider running backs. Like, you'd have to change the standards for running backs based on the era, but he still played in an era with dominant running backs. Like, there was still and again, also a bit of a fall off. Like, you know, for 5-6 years, Hall of Famer. And then just nothing after that. Not in the Hall of Fame. Not in the Hall of Fame. Is that because? Oh, it could be inactive. It's not Saquon Barkley.
Let's see. I mean, he hasn't retired, but he is not active.
Not
at least I know
active, but he hasn't retired. Oh, that's weird.
I mean, he's not coming back, but
he's not.
Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess he could.
Ty Gurley announced his retirement. I don't think it was Ty Gurley anyway. This is what a weird way of saying this. Who hasn't announced their retirement? Has like Arian Foster not announced his retirement?
It is not Arian Foster. He did do it once though.
Oh, good for him.
Arian Foster. I'm sure he announced his retirement.
I don't know. I just don't know. I think he's a podcaster, right?
Yeah. This guy. Does he have a podcast? I don't know. If he's got a podcast, there's maybe 10 people that listen to it.
The hell? Who are you talking about? It's been way too long for it to be Chris Johnson. It's got to be somebody that was recent.
Yeah, very recent. I believe. Hold on, let me pull up his Wikipedia, make sure I get the right team, the most recent team that he played with.
Melvin Gordon.
Not Melvin Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, I was gonna say the Ravens are the second most recent team that he played for.
Oh, Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell had 2 such 150-yard rushing games in the playoffs.
All right. Very good.
Le'Veon Bell.
Very good. All right. How about we get Tubular then? How about it?
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, here's what's coming up this weekend, totally tubular-wise. Obviously, we couldn't possibly go over all of it because it is way too much, but some of the highlights anyway. Tonight...
let's go over all.
No. Tonight, Unrivaled debuts tonight on TNT, the 3-on-3 Women's Basketball League. You can check that out. With them not being like team... I don't know. Whatever. It's something that I'll look at some point, but probably... It's always difficult for me if there's not a team. Like, I love the WNBA, but it's tough because unless the Phoenix Mercury are playing, I don't have a rooting interest necessarily. Australian Open coverage tonight, 9 o'clock on ESPN2. Starts at 7 on ESPN Plus. Kind of the same all weekend. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock on ESPN2. Starts at 7 on ESPN Plus. Sunday night, 9 o'clock on ESPN2. Starts at 7 on ESPN Plus. Tomorrow, college hoops. Towson, 2 o'clock. That's a quick turnaround. 2 o'clock at home against Stony Brook.
Everyone does it. Yeah.
Does the whole CAA do that? Thursday night and then 2 o'clock on.
I mean, some play at 7, some play.
See that like
play
Saturday night would make more sense to me. Like it's just that's a quick turnaround to Saturday afternoon. Right there you go. Saturday. Monumental for that one. Stony Brook and Towson tomorrow at 2. ESPN Plus Maine UMBC tomorrow at 1. Loyola Lehigh at 2. Navy Bucknell at 4. First playoff game tomorrow, 4:30, ESPN and ABC for Texans Chiefs. Then Fox, 8 o'clock tomorrow night for Commanders Lions at 8. Everything else tomorrow, go to glennclarkradio.com and find it there. And on Sunday, of course, Ravens Bills, 6:30 on CBS. Maryland basketball, hooray! Noon. Is it supposed to snow now on top of that on Sunday? I think there's going to be like
badly.
I think it's supposed to be like 2 to 4 inches of snow, like during the day. Though you can't get a day off of work out of it this time. Like it's not.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, I know. Noon, Big Ten Network for Nebraska Maryland on Sunday. And Rams Eagles 3 o'clock on NBC to not to wrap up because the Ravens game actually wraps it up, but that's the other playoff game. All right, non-sports.
Big UFC fight Saturday night as well.
Sure.
That'll be happening. Islam Makhachev. You should say that other guy's name.
No, thank you.
Armin Tsarukyan.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah,
that's what you were going to say. Season 23 of Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO tonight at 10, if anybody's into that.
I don't think anybody is.
No one's into that?
I don't think any.
It is the Season 2 finale of Silo on Apple TV+. It is also the Season 2 premiere of Severance on Apple TV+ as well.
Everybody loves that show.
Yeah, I think I got it. I don't know. I don't know when, but I should check it out, I guess. Back in Action has Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx are back in action in this action movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
A Different Man is streaming now on Hulu as well. This is Sebastian Stan.
This is the Donald Trump movie.
No, this is not.
No. What's that called?
Trump. That one's called The Apprentice? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, The Apprentice.
What's A Different Man?
Different Man is so there's a guy with neurofibromatosis. That's the thing where like your face is all like Adam Pearson. I don't. Look up Adam Pearson. He's in this movie, by the way. So he gets in experimental surgery repair his face, and it works perfectly. It turns him into Sebastian Stan. So he's like all handsome and stuff, and he's like,
oh, okay,
and he's like great. And then Adam Pearson shows up, and then people love him because he's like different, and like he steals Sebastian Stan's girlfriend, I think.
Oh.
And it's like I don't think it's supposed to be funny, but like it is like it's like a big it's like a deep story into how he gets everything he wants and then realizes that he's miserable still, and like that kind of thing. But yeah, Sebastian Stan's in it. That is really the only highlight. That's on Max. Saturday Night Live is back. Dave Chappelle with Glorilla as the musical guest.
This is not the Timothy Chalamet episode. That's next week.
That'll be next week, yeah.
All right, very good. Thanks today to Stan the Fan. Thanks also to Derek Rackley. And by the way, everything else you can find at glennclarkradio.com.
Oh, man, it really is going to snow Sunday.
Yeah. Thanks to...
What's about going to that Maryland game?
I was thinking about taking my kids to the Maryland game. I was expecting tickets to bottom out and scoop in, get some $10 tickets, and go down to the game.
Rent the snowplow or something.
I'm not. There's no. I was going to take my father. There's no chance that's happening. Like it's just out of the cards. Derek Rackley, Ryan O'Halloran, Bo Smolka, Stan, and Jay Feely, who you're about to hear from, will get it all up, as well as the very important Hall of Fame ballot.
That'll be at the top, everybody, so make sure you...
And in the greatest hits section of the...
Can you take me higher?
Tab at glennclarkradio.com. Monday is the day. There'll be a show. We'll see. We'll see. That's all I can say. We will see. Don't forget the Bat Around tomorrow morning at 10, Project Game Day on Sunday immediately following the game. Come and hang out with us for that. Thanks to all of our everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Visit Hartford Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, CIAA Tournament, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, Costa Sin, MSAA, Maryland Sports, Baltimore Orioles, Brigance Brigade, your local Toyota dealer, and buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great weekend. For the love of God, go Ravens, go Maryland, go Towson, go all the local hoops teams, UMBC, Loyola, the whole deal. Duke sucks. We wrap up today's show and the week. Had to do this a little bit earlier because of his schedule getting ready for the game, but a chance to catch up with Jay Feely, who's on the broadcast for CBS Sunday night right here on GCR.
Well, joined now here on GCR by a man that we've unfortunately talked to a lot this season and not always about great things, but we're excited this week because he will be on the sidelines Sunday night. CBS for Ravens Bills. He is, of course, the great Jay Feely, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Jay, it's Glenn. It's great to catch up, man. It's great to not be talking about, the unpleasant stuff. Thank you for taking the time for it.
My pleasure. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about Tucker.
Okay, let's do it really quickly. Since the bye, hasn't missed a kick.
Right.
For what it's worth, he's only tried 3 field goals. Are you confident that he's worked through whatever he was going through, or still to be determined in a place that's really difficult to make a kick in January?
I think it's still to be determined. I think, obviously, you made 3 field goals, you made 17 extra points, you're 20 for 20 since the bye week, so you feel better about yourself, and the team does as well. You wish there was probably 6 or 7 more field goals in those games, that you had a lot more opportunities, you felt really good. But both these kickers have struggled at times this year. When you look at Tyler Bass, he's missed 5 kicks, he's missed 5 extra points, which was the most in the NFL. And you go back to last year on this field in the divisional round, he has a kick to a 44-yard field goal to tie the game against the Chiefs, and he missed that, and he's got to sit with that all offseason. So, in a game which I think will be a close game and tight and points will be, precious, I think these kickers are going to play a big part in that. And, it'll be interesting to see who handles the cold better and who can handle the pressure of this game better, given the struggles that both have had throughout the year.
Because you mentioned that the last time the Ravens played a playoff game in Buffalo, before Justin Tucker had gone through all these struggles, when he was Justin Tucker, he did miss a couple kicks. Now, the wins that day were insanity. Like, it was difficult to even play football in those conditions. Can you explain, even though the winds might not be like that on Sunday night, just what we're talking about single degree temperatures, like truly insane conditions. What is the difficulty of kicking in those situations?
Yeah, it's much harder to stand on the sidelines like I'm going to do, but
that's for sure. Yeah.
No, it is hard. I mean, I played in a game like that in the NFC Championship in Philly, and David Akers and I were trying to warm up before the game, and it was single-digit temperatures, and it was pretty windy that day. And I remember him and I sitting there trying to hit 40-yard field goals into one end, and we couldn't make a kick. Like, it was just impossible to make a kick going one way. And so, you had to tell the coaches, like, hey, like, you can't kick a field goal going this way. Like, you have to go into the game with that mindset. It's not supposed to be that windy. It says like 10 miles an hour right now, but the ball doesn't compress near as much when it's that cold. The leather gets really hard. Your foot's all bruised up after the game because it's like, kicking an ice block over and over. And, so it'll be interesting to see how big an impact. Like, I'll watch in pregame to see, how much distance these guys lose on kickoffs. Are they able to kick touchbacks at all? Or are you going to see a lot more returns, and, which team schemes that up better? So there's a lot of things that go into it that change when it's a game that's going to have, these kind of conditions.
Jay, we're actually used to in Baltimore, whenever the Ravens have won championships, like the special teams have been, through the roof. This year,
kickoff return against the Giants in the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like obviously Jacoby Jones in 2012. Like there's been a lot of that. This year, it's not just Justin Tucker. Like the punting has been spotty. The punt return a week ago, Steven Sims had a ball go off his face mask and then didn't want to field a ball the rest of the night. Like, are you surprised? Are you concerned that that's the type of thing that can end up biting a team when, to your point, these games are likely to be close, however many more of them you're going to play the rest of the way?
Certainly surprised, because John Harbaugh teams have been excellent special teams units since he was a special teams coordinator. It's been a priority. They put a priority on the roster, and they've had great specialists forever, in Baltimore on both sides, whether it's kicking and punting, long snappers, cover guys. This is a team that values special teams, and they're going up against a Bills team that, the last 2 years has been a bottom 10 unit. And so it's an area where you come in and you feel like you should be able to take advantage of the Bills team on special teams, and if you can't do that, that's certainly, an area that you're losing an opportunity, against this Bills team. But in the end, I'll tell you what I think this comes down to, this game, is can the Bills stop this running game?
Right.
Because they live in nickel. They want to stay in nickel more than anybody else in the NFL. And when the Ravens come out and they got an extra offensive lineman, they got 2 tight ends, they got Patrick Ricard, you got Derrick Henry, everybody's over 250 pounds, and that except for Lamar Jackson. And can you sit there and line up in nickel and say, yeah, we think we can stop this running game and this power running game with Derrick Henry? I don't know that you can. I mean, we haven't had meetings with them yet. I'm not speaking out of turn and say anything, but like that's the matchup that you say, okay, how can this Bills team stop this running game? If they can't stop the running game with Derrick Henry, then nothing else matters.
He is Jay Feely. Of course, he'll be on the sidelines Sunday night in Buffalo, Ravens-Bills on CBS. Jay, as you say that, there are still scars in Baltimore from the AFC Championship game a year ago where, to be fair, there was no Derrick Henry, but the Ravens had been running the ball quite well all season long and then suddenly decided, no, we're not going to do that in the biggest game of the year. I cannot fathom that there is a world where the Ravens get away from exactly what you just described. Is there any thought process to you that they better not do that, or are you in the same boat? Like there's just no way they can do anything other than exactly what they did a week ago against the Steelers: line up, shove it down their throats, force the Bills to try to stop it.
The only way I can see it happening is if you get behind early. Like that's worst case scenario for Ravens fans. Get behind early, then you feel like you have to throw the ball. I think the weather though is going to dictate some of that too. Where, okay, let's go out and let's run the ball in this cold, in these conditions. It's not conducive to throwing the ball, 40 times. I think both teams are going to be committed to trying to run the ball, and you got quarterbacks who can run the ball and carry it. And in these conditions, that's a huge advantage. So it's really about possession and taking advantage of each possession, because in a game like this, like you don't score 2 times in a row. You go 3 and out twice. The other team might possess the ball for 8 minutes each drive and be up 14-0. They've taken up, 2 quarters of the game, so it's a game where possessions are going to be at a premium, and you got to take advantage of each one of those because you don't know how many you're going to get.
Jay, what do you make of, look, the MVP debate is at the center. I'm sure it's going to come up a time or two on the broadcast on Sunday night. The idea, it looks now after Lamar was named first team All-Pro, given that those are the same voters, it seems like it's much more likely that Lamar is going to win his 3rd MVP. What do you make of the idea that you're going to get a pissed off Bills team that, is even more up for this on Sunday night because they feel like their guy got disrespected? Again, the easy thing to say back is like, if that's what you need in an AFC divisional game, then, but what do you make of that thought process?
I don't think guys play harder. I don't think that's a reality. Something like that. I do think it's fascinating and awesome that we get the top 2 MVP candidates, the top 2 quarterbacks going head to head in this game. And I can make an argument for both of them, to win the MVP. I wish you could have co-MVPs this year, like, you had with Steve McNair and Peyton Manning when they split it, because I think both of them are deserving. But it's just been fascinating. When you look at Josh Allen and you make his case, you say, okay, he doesn't have a great receiving core. They weren't sure what everything was going to look like offensively going in. You had a ton of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. The last Ravens game, they had 5 or 6 guys that weren't playing in that game. But Josh Allen has put this team on his shoulders and literally carried them to this spot. They won a couple more games, than the Ravens did. And he did it without elite players around him on the offensive side of the ball. And Lamar Jackson, you make his case, has been the best player in the game, and, he's got the numbers are on his side. He's played exceptional football at such a high level that no one else has done when you add in what he does in the run game as well. And he's got the most touchdowns. He's thrown the ball so well. Can you imagine going back to the beginning of Lamar's career? Like, I think back to his first playoff game against the Chargers and saying, like, here's what he's going to throw for. Here's the amount of touchdowns he's going to throw for. Like, to think about the progression that he's had in the passing game and the way that he's developed as a thrower of the ball. Just go back, to bring in Todd Monken in and what they were trying to do when you get rid of Greg Roman, like, hey, we got to develop this passing game. They've certainly, done that, an amazing job of that. And he's done a great job of becoming an elite passer as well. And then when you add in what they can do, not only with him, but also with Derrick Henry, it's just such a tough offense to go against.
Jay, it's supposed, you bring all of that up, right? That Chargers game sort of started a narrative of Lamar Jackson not being a good playoff quarterback. And at the beginning, it was certainly fair, although we also acknowledged that was a 21-year-old, 22-year-old Lamar Jackson. Guys don't even come into the league at that age. Now they're just taking NIL money until like 24 at this point. Is that gone now? Has Lamar played well enough in the playoffs that's gone, or does that only go away if he gets to a Super Bowl and that narrative can disappear at that point?
I think that's the most interesting question, and actually for both teams, not just the Ravens and Lamar, because whoever loses this game, this was a very disappointing season. As good as it's been for both teams, whoever loses this game, it's a bitter pill. Like, we lost again. The Bills lose. They lose in the divisional again. And Josh Allen can't get this team to a Super Bowl. If Lamar loses, he can't do it in the playoffs. He's a regular season guy. If he wins 3 MVPs and he can't get to the Super Bowl, what good is it? And, so it's a fascinating game for, and it's interesting because whoever wins this game, if they lose next week in the AFC Championship, you say the same thing. Same thing. Got to go to the Super Bowl. Got to go to the Super Bowl, and they need to win it. To win a Super Bowl for both of these guys, for Josh Allen, for Lamar Jackson, would change the trajectory of their career and the way people view them. Lose either of these games, and nothing changes. Hey, you're an MVP caliber quarterback that can't win the big games. And Patrick Mahomes is a guy that can go in there and he can lead your team to Super Bowls, and he knows how to win championships. So it's fascinating for me because you got the 2 best players, the 2 MVP front runners, but probably the 2 most desperate guys in the NFL to get a win this weekend.
Do you feel like there can be a weight to that for these guys? Like on Lamar acknowledged in the past being antsy in the playoffs. And then, he obviously looked incredibly comfortable. And I'm sure that there's a factor, Derrick Henry exists. That's a pretty good, safety blanket, or going to make you feel good. But like, do you think about that at all? That in this game, something goes wrong, the weight of that could become impactful for either of these quarterbacks?
Well, I'm just thinking about it from my perspective. I had to discipline my mind always to not think about the implications of what I was doing because it was gonna negatively impact me. If you thought about the positive implications, what might happen if you make this kick, if you go out there, or the negative implications, I might get fired. So I wouldn't let my mind think about those things. And that's what both of these quarterbacks and really all the guys on these teams, everybody has huge implications on these playoff games, on your career, on your future, on the way people view you. You think about Justin Tucker and what could go through his mind going into this game. If he goes out and he has a great playoffs, like, it's erased. They go to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, and he makes a bunch of kicks and kicks some game winners along the way. The regular season doesn't matter. Hey, he had a bad regular season, but he fixed it, and he did what he always does, and he's back to Justin Tucker. You have a bad playoffs, and now everybody's talking about, is your career over? Like, are you not the same guy? Should we replace him? Like, there's all those types of questions, that every guy has, and everybody has to deal with that. And that's the biggest thing, that mental challenge of not allowing your mind to wander and staying present right here today, this practice, this opportunity, this rep, and then this game, and then throughout that game.
All right, Jay Feely. So give me your tips. Like we got people from Baltimore, lots of folks going up on buses. They're going to be standing out in the cold on Sunday night. What's your go-to? How do you survive these ungodly conditions that you're going to be dealing with in Buffalo?
Let's see. Heated vests, you know, with the batteries. Hold on, look at this. I got the battery packs charged.
Wow, oh man. You're not messing around.
I got a few more over here too. Those are for the
Wait,
socks.
those are just for the okay. All right.
Those are for the socks and the gloves. So I'm gonna have lots of batteries and try to stay warm. But for me, it's the warm liquid, right? If you're consistently drinking, you know, hot cocoa, coffee, tea, warm liquid, I think it keeps your body warm and you don't get those, you know, the chills. And once you start getting them, then you're done. You know what I did bad though was last year up here at the Pittsburgh game, which got delayed a game.
Oh yeah.
I had the heated socks going in the first half and the batteries ran out of battery. I didn't have a way to charge them. And then it was terrible because I had been sweating in my feet because they heated, and then it just froze. So my feet were like it was horrible. So don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. Make sure you have enough batteries if you're going to have it.
Be like Jay Feely. Bring 6 chargers with you in order to be ready to go. At Jay Feely, of course. And hopefully, Jay, we'll be trying to talk to you again next week. Hopefully.
All right. Good
that'll
to talk
be the
to you.
case. Always appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Take care.